First, they try and cancel you.
They can't call me stupid, and they can't call me unsuccessful, and they can't call me the things they want to call me. So instead, they have to say I'm a bad person.
Then they put you in jail.
If you ever have anything, people are going to come and try and take it, which is why they put me in jail in the first place. I have influence, and they want to take it off me.
And if that doesn't work, they kill you.
Everything comes to an end one day, unless you die. And if you die, then it doesn't matter anymore.
Andrew Tate, welcome to the Jack Neel Podcast. Why are you still alive?
Well, good to meet you, Jack. First, to shake hands, thank you. It's a nice morning, having breakfast. Nicotine and caffeine. Well, I'm still alive, I think, because I don't think that I'm as high profile as I previously was. Before, when I was saying those things that they were going to come for me, I was worried they were going to skip stage 2. But they're now very invested in the second stage. They're trying very hard to put me in jail. I was in jail. I'm out. I think as it stands, I currently have 8 ongoing criminal cases, which is, yeah.
Did they make more money in stage 2?
Well, when you analyze these things, it's quite interesting. If you look at, let's say, the British government, they can take a prosecutor who makes 30, 40,000 a year. They can type loads of pieces of paper. They can mess with somebody who's wealthy, who's going to hire a £1 million a month legal team. And of course, out of that £1 million a month, 50% is tax. So they're getting $500,000 a month off a 30 grand a year employee. And they have all the interests of just keeping it going for as long as possible. So the UK state, I mean, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, and I have to be careful what I say I certainly know and what I pretend I don't certainly know. But let's put it this way. Romania was a proxy. They were told by Western powers to mess with me. And then, even though we discussed the matrix and we talk about how things are set up, what effectively happens is if a Western government says there's a guy in your country you want him dealt with, a prosecutor will investigate that guy. They'll put together a case. It'll go to court. That's what's happened. It looks like the judiciary is semi-fair here. And it's slowly being thrown away little by little. And I'm winning because I've done nothing wrong. So now the UK state's like, we can't trust those darn Romanians. We'll do it. So now they've raised a bunch of charges against me and they're trying to. I said it on Raheem. I did one of his podcasts about 6-7 months ago. I said, I believe the UK is going to come for me next. I literally said the words and within a month. I don't know if I'm speaking things into reality or I could just see the future. I'm not sure which one it is. But now the UK state's trying to say I avoided tax and money laundering and blah, blah, blah. So we'll see how it all goes.
Are you a citizen of the US or the UK?
UK. I've got a British passport. So I actually see myself more English than American.
Yeah.
Because the English culture is a hard one to describe. You have to grow up with it to understand it. I can't even begin to explain it to you. But there's something English inside of me. Like Americans are all friendly, hello. The English are not that. You know, if you see someone crash their car, it's just like, ha, ha, ha. It's like a different culture. The Americans would be like, you okay, buddy?
Yeah.
The English are like, you can't park there. So I see myself English, and I do kind of miss England. But recently, if you look at Keir Starmer, what he's just done, locking everyone up for tweets, it's getting dystopian in the Western world now. It's getting kind of scary. So then you sit and think, well, where can you live? Where can you move to? I mean, Romania was very good to me. Romania has no problem with me, but they're obviously not prepared to protect me if the price is high enough. So then you're like, okay, so where do you go? The world's kind of small. Where would you move if you had to leave America today?
Maybe Dubai? Maybe Thailand?
See, Dubai's good, but you know what the thing? I love Dubai, and I love the idea of Dubai, and it's great, but for a couple months a year, because it's a city. Yeah. It's like one city. There's nowhere else to go, and Dubai's full of people I do want to talk to, but it's also, unfortunately, full of people I don't want to talk to, you know?
Like Miami.
Yeah, there's going to be everyone like, oh, hi. It's like, oh, go away. So Dubai, but besides Dubai, which is the obvious choice, it's harder. I don't know. If you think of anywhere, let me know. I'm thinking Svalbard. You know, ever heard of Svalbard?
No, where's that at?
It's a tiny island. I think it's either Danish or Norwegian territory, up near the Arctic Circle, and you don't even need a passport or a visa to live there. You can just go to Svalbard and live on Svalbard. I think it's dark for like 9 months a year. Oh, wow. But maybe I'll move to Svalbard, get some huskies, get a pet bear, sit up there, I'm not sure.
Andrew, you've greatly impacted many people, including myself. Your mission, the way you carry yourself, have significantly influenced mine and many young men's beliefs. That said, I want to dive into what truly matters to you regarding your mission. Can you elaborate on what your mission is and why it's important to you?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. The primary reason the world is in the mess it's in today is because masculinity has been under attack for a very long time. I wouldn't say it's because I'm particularly good with words. I just understand that there's not a single societal ill you can name now that is not directly correlated to a decline in masculinity. We could even test it. You can name a societal ill, and I'll say it's because men aren't men anymore. Men are the protectors, and men are the ones who enforce boundaries and parameters. We always have been. And because that's been declining, there's been more and more encroachment on not just the fabric of society, but even the fabric of truth, right? Even what is a man, what is a woman? You live in LA, you know better than me, right? So objective truth is now under assault. Nobody's kids are safe from the LGBT agenda. Nobody's country is safe from unchecked migrants flooding across the border. Like, nothing's safe anymore. And it's the men's job to say, no, that's enough. This is a hard parameter. We refuse to accept it. This is what men do, not women, typically. So they attack the men first. You destroy the warriors of a society before you want to conquer it. And it's my goal, I guess, my objective, to just try and restore some of the typically, traditionally masculine traits inside of the men of the world today. And they call that toxically masculine, which of course is a lie. It's such an interesting, it's so hypocritical they say toxically masculine, because if they call the police, they want a toxically masculine man. If you have to go to war, you want toxically masculine men. If you need a firefighter, you want a toxically masculine man. And then they call it all toxic and try and throw it out the window. It's so interesting how hypocritical they are. So if you will often see the more masculine a society is, the harder it is to psyop the populace, because typically in a masculine, patriarchal society, the men protect their women from certain ideals, and they protect their women from certain degrees of brainwashing. I'll give you a very simple example. If you look at the COVID debacle, in every household where the woman was in charge, I guarantee they were all masked up and they all took their injections because they were scared. They were fearful. And women are easy to scare. They're easier to scare than men. So you can put it all over the news, everyone's going to die, and you can use an emotional argument because women are typically more emotional than logical, and you can talk about the fact that your grandma's going to die if you don't take the injection, and blah, blah, blah. In a household ran by the men, all this crap came on the news, and unless he's a total pussy, he was like, you know what, everyone just calm down. Let's wait a few weeks. Just relax before we start getting injections. Far more calm. So that's what a man's typical job has always been, and we've lost that in the West now, so they can come along with absolute insanity. And because there's not a male logical barrier to the emotional arguments, to the propaganda, to the garbage, you see the entire population being brainwashed very, very quickly. I can give you a very recent example of this. Joe Biden's the best president ever. He's not senile. He's not senile. Next day. He's senile. He must go. Next day. Kamala's the best. Like, boom, boom, boom. Like they forgot that they were saying that Joe Biden was perfectly capable like two weeks ago. And nobody liked Kamala. Even the liberals didn't pretend to like her. And now they're all like, Kamala is great. Kamala is great. It's like, it's incredible. But that's because no one comes along, or there's no barrier to the brainwashing. And a lot of people are fully slave-minded. The world makes a lot more sense when you understand there's a huge contingent of people who genuinely want to be slaves because they feel happier as a slave because they don't have to think. And then they don't need any personal responsibility for themselves, and they don't have to blame themselves for their own failings. So they want to just be part of a system. You know, it's like, it's kind of scary that they could do COVID all over again. They could do it all over again. Like, a certain percentage of people have learned their lesson, but there's a huge percentage of people who have learned nothing at all. Kamala's great, you know, whatever they're supposed to do. And a lot of this comes from masculinity. I think that men as a whole, call me misogynistic, that would be terrible. This never happened before. But men as a whole, we're typically more prepared to say or do something which may hurt somebody's feelings because we believe it's right than a woman. A woman would be like, but feelings. And a man will be more logical. So a man can sit there and say, no, she's unfit for the job. Oh, but she's a black woman, the first woman president. I don't care. She's unfit for the job. So I think masculinity solves a lot of the societal ills that the West is currently facing. We're certainly going to need it. We're going to need masculinity as the world divides into its two polars, and we have China, Russia, and all these other countries which are very masculine nations, and we're sitting around arguing about what a man is, what a woman is. It's interesting. So yeah, I mean, my mission, I never thought of it as a mission, but I just saw the world was such bullshit, and I saw the only answer was a very simple one. So I thought, okay, well, let me at least be a beacon for that, and then I kind of grew a following, and that's where it's going, I guess. Because truthfully, and don't want to interrupt, but The whole COVID debacle was literally contingent on men being pussies.
Yeah.
The reason COVID happened is because men are pussies. That's why it happened. In the countries where they weren't pussies, it didn't happen. And I can give you a very simple example. I was sitting here in a restaurant. My brother was dating a girl from Kyrgyzstan. We said, Kyrgyzstan, what's that like? And she was describing Kyrgyzstan. And we said, what was COVID like during Kyrgyzstan? Like, oh, they tried that. But within 48 hours, everyone said, no, I have to work. I don't care. COVID was over in 3 days in Kyrgyzstan because the men were like, I have to go to work. Piss off. Yeah. That was it. But in the West, everyone's such cowards. Everyone's so scared, it managed to last for years and years because men are the resilience and men are also the only ones who are ever going to be able to. When I say rebellion, I don't mean violent, but I do mean rebellion. If enough of the men, the male population, disagree with an idea, then you can't enforce it. You can have an idea that none of the women agree with. You could still enforce it because they can cry and moan. They can make Facebook posts. They can put on a pink hat. And
opinion only matters if it's backed by violence.
That's right. Nobody gives a shit. But if the men refuse to listen, it's different because exactly, you nailed it. An opinion only matters if it's backed by violence. In fact, nothing in the world matters unless it's backed by violence. A court order means nothing unless it's backed by violence. Everything in the world is violence. We live in a violent world with a whole bunch of layers on top of it. So if you don't have the propensity and capability for violence, you don't mean anything anyway, which is actually why all these people want to be slave-minded in the first place, because they're sitting in a room or they're looking around and they're being told certain ideas and they understand if they disagree with those ideas, they have to defend themselves and their point of view. And they don't feel capable with violence. So they're like, they've said Kamala's great. If I say Kamala's not great, they're going to yell at me. And I'm scared of it ever even possibly getting violent because I'm incompetent. So therefore, Kamala's great. So that's why they just want to take away masculinity and make a whole bunch of weak pussies and idiots. And this is where a lot of the confusion comes from my message, because people call me misogynistic because I talk about the masculine and feminine frames. And I'm not being insulting in any way. When I say the feminine frame is the frame which allows you to be more malleable as a person. They see that as an insult, but it's not an insult. That's a woman's superpower that she's malleable. And the masculine frame is, no, I'm not malleable. No, I'm rigid and I'm obtuse and it's this way. And I don't care what you say. And I don't
Order
care.
and chaos.
You're wrong. Yeah. You're wrong. You're wrong. Do something. That's the masculine frame of it all.
Andrew, I do want to get more into the 2024 election in a bit, but you said recently that you're enjoying boredom. You stated fun is haram and having less fun is more fun.
Yeah.
How has getting off house arrest changed your day-to-day?
I miss house arrest. I want to go back. I had no pressure or stress to leave my house under house arrest. Now I'm off house arrest. It's a sunny day. I have all these fancy cars and there's so many nice places to go and have a coffee, and I feel obligated to try and live my life. But on house arrest, I didn't have to worry about any of those things. What is fun? I don't know. You live in LA. You're a young man. You tell me, what's fun in the world today? What's fun?
People like to go to clubs.
Awful. Anything else?
People like to go to Erewhon. Do you know what that is?
No.
Oh, it's like a very popular grocery store. Very expensive.
This is what I mean. Going to the grocery stores become fun. Like, I don't know what's fun anymore. I feel like the world's kind of the same wherever you are. People often say to me, what's Romania like? And I say, well, yeah, it's beautiful. It's got beautiful nature. It's got amazing history. I'm like, what's it like living there? Well, you either go out for dinner or you stay home. In LA, you go out for dinner or you stay home. In Tokyo, you go out for dinner or you stay home. Like, there's nothing to do besides go out to eat or stay in your house. You can go clubs and those kind of things, but I'm definitely certainly past all of that. So yeah, then you have to find fun. What do I find fun? I love fighting. I love driving because they're very active things that take my brain off work. Besides that, I like to do my work. My idea of fun is completing all my emails and making.
You've been playing a lot of Uno recently, haven't you?
Well, Uno is fun. Now you mentioned Uno's fun, but masculine competition is fun. I think what's fun as a man is being the best at anything, right? So my girl will say to me, why do you work all the time? All you do is work. I said, no, because I have to be the richest man on the planet. That's why I want as much money as possible. She goes, you have enough money. I was like, I know, but it's a game. It's a video game. I want a high score.
Where do you find competition now?
Well, I live with guys. I live with my friends, and we make sure that it's constant and endless competition because we live together. So if my brother does 100 push-ups, I have to do 101, which means he'll do 102, and then I'll do 103, and we'll just call each other names all day until thousands of push-ups have been done. So I live in a very masculine environment because masculine competition drives you forward. We all work together. We all work inside of the company, and we're very successful. Uno, of course. But yeah, I don't really know what's fun anymore. I feel like when I was young, when I was 21, 22, before the internet was such a big thing, before smartphones were a thing, people could be a lot more present and you could go somewhere and it could be fun. But now you have access to all the world's information, and you have the ability to view any other place on the planet at the same time you're somewhere else, and you have all these other people to talk to and all these things to do. I just feel like nothing's really fun anymore besides working hard, or you need an activity which is so adrenaline filled that it distracts you, which is why I love driving fast cars and fighting, because it's the only time I'm not thinking about work. Otherwise, it's like, okay, I may as well.
Everything else is signaling, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you look at how things changed, when I went to clubs when I was 21, everyone was having fun. Last time I went to a club, everyone was pretending to have fun for an Instagram story. So they'd sit there like this, and then get their phone out and go, and then put it back down. Like, so the fun is only for the Instagram. So we're living in a world now where no one's actually trying to have fun. We're trying to show everyone else how much fun we're having. Nobody's actually enjoying anything. It's just a competition, right, of FOMO.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy just to get my work done, and maybe I'm starting to get old after all. I'm 37. I'm getting old. I see my kids. I do my emails. I train hard. Maybe go for a drive with the car. Maybe get a coffee. That's it. On house arrest, I didn't even have to do the drive and the coffee part, so it was even more peaceful. Kind of miss house arrest. Kind of miss jail. Maybe I should just go all the way back.
Regarding the current case, so a Florida judge ruled that 2 of the victims in the case were lying about the allegations.
Yep.
Where's the case currently at? What does that really mean, the Florida case? Can you give us an update on the case?
Yeah, so I have to be careful what I say, but basically there was American girls who started this whole debacle. We can go down the rabbit hole as to whether they were sponsored by a liberal NGO to attack us initially, or if their liberal NGO came along afterwards to fund their legal bills, which seems to me more suspicious than if they weren't already set up and sent. Yeah. So it's actually very scary. We can look at it and remove it from my case. It's very scary. If you're a high-profile man, if you're extremely famous and you talk against the system, if you talk for the system, then of course you can have sex with whoever you want. You can go to islands, you can do whatever you want. But if you talk against the system, at some point in the future, all they need to do is find one girl and sponsor her to go and be around you. You don't need to have sexual intercourse with her. You don't need to touch her. She just needs to be in your vicinity for a day or two and then make crazy accusations. And
can they face any repercussions for false allegations?
It looks like they're going to in an American court. But that puts the Romanian case in a very difficult situation, right? Because American court's saying that it was all started by liars. But the Romanian police knew it was started by liars. I don't think the Romanian prosecutors or the police were stupid enough to actually believe a word they said, at all. They knew it was started by liars, and for some reason they either saw an opportunity for personal gain, or they were instructed by Western governments. We don't care, it's a lie. Do your absolute best to wreck these guys. And I have to be careful what I say because I'm in a Romanian judicial process. But even when it all initially started, and I first sat down with the Romanian police, they were laughing at the whole idea of the story. Everyone was laughing. It was all a joke. Mm-hmm. And then when I got arrested, they were like, yeah, well, it's life. Yeah, it's not real, but, whatever. Like, it was a very strange scenario. So I don't know if they're like, we can get promotions out of this. And some of them did get promotions. Perhaps they got the promotion because they were instructed to by a Western government. There's a lot of things going on. However, if anyone thinks this is about human trafficking, they're not very smart. In the power dynamics of Earth, when there's an opportunity, you take it. That's just how it works. And I guess they thought this guy has a lot of influence. He's talking against our agendas. We're trying very hard to convince men to chop their dicks off, and he's trying very hard to make sure they don't. And we have an opportunity here we can use to wreck him and damage his influence, they so believed. At least damage his life. And they did it. I guess they intended for me to be mentally broken when I left the jail, the solitary confinement cell, or they intended for me to go bankrupt because they tried to take all my money. They intended to do a lot of damage to me and my influence, and unfortunately for them, they have failed. But they're not done yet. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, there's never been a period in human history where you could be a king of anything and not be at war. So if you want to become monumentally famous, if you want to get larger and larger, if your podcast becomes the most famous podcast in the world, people are going to come to you and say, are you pro-trans, whatever? And if you decide to say no, you need to go to sleep that night knowing there's going to be consequences for that. That's how it works in the world. There's no such thing as you get to just get big and say whatever you want. There's a reason all the celebrities all say the same thing. The soul-selling process, I've explained before, but it's pretty simple. Most things are gate-kept. So if you're a sports star, you're on a team. If you say things you're not supposed to say, you're off the team. If you're a music star, you have a producer or a record label. If you're on YouTube, right, they'll take you off YouTube. Most things are gate-kept. To become famous without a gatekeeper is very unusual, which is what I managed to do because I wasn't on a platform that could quite easily or quickly delete me from. But when you're gatekept, you have certain things you're allowed to say and you're not allowed to say. And if you get famous without a gatekeeper, they try and give you one. So with me, they came along with a sponsorship deal for $50 million. And they said, we're going to sponsor you, but you're going to have official opinions on X, Y, Z. And we're going to give you 50 mil. And I said, well, I don't need the money.
When was that?
That was about 7 months before I was arrested, 6 or 7 months before I was arrested. So that's 2022, I think. And I said, well, I'm unhappy with these official opinions you want me to have. And then what they do is they start doing veiled threats. They say, well, we also have the best PR teams and the best legal teams in the world. So if anything bad happens, our PR team and our lawyers can clean everything up. But what they're really saying is we can use our PR team and our legal teams to wreck you. That's what they're basically saying. It's like the mafia. They used to go into someone's house or someone's store and say, someone's going to break your windows. And if you don't pay us to stop them, your window's going to get broken. But basically it's them breaking the windows and you have to pay them to stop them breaking the windows. But they pretend it's somebody else. So that's effectively how it works. And if you decline their money, they get pretty angry pretty quickly. And before you know it, your trouble starts to begin. And I declined the money. And then it was 2 months after that I was canceled. I was deleted from everything, from Instagram, from YouTube, etc.
2 weeks later.
2 to 3 weeks later, I woke up one day and there was about 400 pages, LGBT pages primarily, calling me a homophobe with the same picture and the same blurb overnight. I woke up and there was like 400 of these pages all in unison. So they must have put it in the group chat. Homophobe, and then I got deleted from everything. And they intended on that damaging my influence. It didn't work. I just moved everyone over to Rumble. So I actually took a huge percentage of their market share, which pissed them off more. And then this girl turns up and she makes false allegations and then jail comes. So yeah, it's a power struggle. And typically they want to own you. They want you to agree to some contract for some sum of money where you're going to say certain things when you're told to say them, or you're not going to disagree with certain things unless you get permission. And once you do sign that contract, it goes further, because once you sign those contracts, then you get invited to the parties. And once you go to the parties, then we all know what happens from there, right? You're at the party and you're talking to someone, just saying hello, being friendly, whatever, or you're drinking, they're drinking, whatever. Even if you don't sleep together, if they can just get you on video talking to a 17-year-old girl, they can make up the rest of the story from there, especially if she will corroborate and she will lie for them, especially if she wants to be famous, right? So now that you have this 17-year-old girl, she wants to be in movies. So if she says, that's right. So if she says, he touched my ass, now you got the endless lawfare. They'll use their PR teams to build it up and put it all over the media. They'll destroy your name. They'll destroy your reputation. So with me, they were like, okay, Andrew, you're the most Googled man in the world. It's time to get rich. I was like, oh, I'm already rich. So, and I make my own money. I'm not an influencer with a business. I'm a businessman with influence. I'm making my own money. I don't need your money. And they're like, but we want you to take our money, do as we say, not talk about certain subjects, come to our parties, let us get blackmail over you, come hang around with all the A-listers. And I was like, no, I'm famous. That's fine. I'm the most well-known man, but leave me. I'm in Romania. Leave me alone.
Let's talk about the other most well-known man. You tweeted a few weeks ago, "The beast has your children." For context, Ava Chris Tyson has faced allegations of sexual relations with a minor, but I will say Mr. Beast has officially denounced this, hired a private investigator, is taking measures against it. But
now he is he? Now. I mean, no, I know what you're saying.
What do you think of Mr. Beast?
Well, I don't know him personally. I've never met him.
Yeah.
His videos must be entertaining because people watch them.
Yeah.
But I don't believe it's a coincidence that the largest YouTube channel on the planet aimed at children managed to get one of their members of staff to convert to whatever, to change gender, to convert to the insanity of transgenderism. I think that a lot of this stuff is purposeful. And the reason I know that is because you're not allowed to be the largest channel on YouTube unless you've already signed their contracts. The things I was just describing to you, the things I was just saying, the algorithm decides which channel's big and which channel's small. It's not organic. It's not accidental. They can suppress you if they want to suppress you. They can put you to the front if they want to put you to the front. The fact they let Mr. Beast become the biggest channel means they sat with him in advance and said, you're going to have official opinions on X, Y, Z. And especially if you're going to be the most famous YouTube channel on the planet, they probably went a level further and said, one of you is going to transition. You're going to transition so all the children at home can see you transition, because we're going to attempt to normalize this transitioning. I mean, this is not a conspiracy theory. I say this and people go, where did you come up with this conspiracy? Well, what's the conspiracy? The YouTube algorithm 100% promotes him. They've allowed him to be the biggest channel. These are objective facts. They're pushing LGBT at every single avenue possible. Young people spend all their time on YouTube and the internet. They don't watch legacy media anymore, so they need to reach them via this mechanism. Like, you can look at all the objective facts and come to the simple conclusion that this was all planned.
Do you think Mr. Beast is weak for kind of signing this deal?
I think that he's done what most celebrities have done. I mean, if Mr. Beast is weak, then all celebrities are weak. But they all basically sit there and say, do I want to try and save the world, or do I just want to get paid? And then I guess there's a level further to the psyop. What they'll say is, well, I'm not a bad person for taking the money, because maybe transgenderism isn't that bad, because then they haven't got to admit they're a coward. So you either admit you're a coward pushing something that you don't agree with, or you can pretend to agree with it. So he can either pretend to agree with it, which is what he did at the beginning. All this transphobia is so upsetting. I remember him tweeting about it. Otherwise, he has to say, well, yeah, I disagree with that. I'm a bitch and I'm scared and I want to stay relevant. The thing is with all these celebrities, they're only relevant because they're allowed to be. Me and a few others are very unique, where the Matrix tries to get rid of your relevance and you're actually still relevant because you have something interesting to say. I mean, Mr. Beast, okay, cool. I've never watched many of his videos, but I believe you could get basically anybody, give them his budget, give them his production team, give them his building team, give them all the things he has, build all these stupid game shows. And you could put any jackass there and say, yay, the game show starts. Yeah. Like, who gives a shit about him? Nobody. He's absolutely replaceable. So if he goes against the Matrix, they banish his ass. These bang next. Same with pop stars and music stars. The reason they agree to this stuff is they stand up there, they're given their music, they're given their lyrics, they're given their tune. It's all given to them. Go. La, 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 la. All right, cool. Yeah, make this one number one, manipulate all, make this one number one, and make this one number three. And they can just get some other 18-year-old blonde. Like, it doesn't matter. They're all so irreplaceable that they know they have no bargaining chips.
How do you make yourself irreplaceable?
Well, you make yourself irreplaceable, I have, at least by having a life which has been so full of struggle and unfortunate circumstance. I have interesting things to talk about, but these people don't want to go through that, do they? So they want to be famous and rich and have an easy life. So when you look at the Mr. Beast debacle, the fact that he allowed it all to happen, and now he's going to come along and say, I can't believe the person who wants to chop their dick off is sexually weird. Oh, you can't believe that? Are you surprised, sir? Because I never was, and anyone with a brain never was. And we all knew he's obviously something wrong with the guy. And now he's going to come along and pretend that he's a good person, and he's going to find out what happened. And I've seen there's a lot of other allegations coming out of sexual assault and all this crap's coming out. Well, you have a pit of degeneracy, right? You have a pit of degeneracy, and I believe all of this was planned. You can't convince me otherwise. And it was an attempt to normalize transgenderism to children. He played part in that. And what I think Mr. Beast should do is, he probably has enough money in banks and they'll come and take it. So he needs to find a way to hide it somewhere, find a country and hide it. And then he needs to come out and say the truth. And he needs to say, look, what happened?
By that same token, Andrew, wouldn't the Matrix want to shut down like the allegations of Chris? Like, wouldn't they try to protect them?
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess they would, but there's only so much control they have, right? They tried to shut down the allegations of the vaccine killing people, but there's only so much they can do. And then eventually it all starts to come out, and they probably suppressed it at first, and they suppressed a little bit, but it keeps coming out. It gets worse and worse. But certainly, let's put it this way. If you look at the fact that the BBC or the mainstream media have printed something negative about me every single day for 4 years, if Mr. Beast was against the Matrix, don't you think that they'd be talking about the largest YouTube channel aimed at children in the world with a transgender contestant or presenter, whatever he was, has been caught committing sexual assault? Shouldn't that be front page news? I mean, they barely mention it, the MSM. It's drama on Twitter, sure, but the MSM don't seem interested because it's part of the Matrix, right? Whereas me, if I sneeze, I'm a terrible, he's a misogynist. He sneezed in a mansplaining way all over the BBC. So, they're already trying to hope people forget.
Yeah.
But none of this is a coincidence. And I think that Jimmy, Mr. Beast, his name's Jimmy, I believe, he should stand up and he should admit it. He should say, yeah, I was pressured into this decision and I shouldn't have done it and it was wrong. And he should man up, and he'd get a lot of respect from people for being brave. But I guess he's scared for his own personal safety, or he doesn't want to get hit with some charges for something and end up in a jail cell. So that's how it goes.
This idea of trans liberation and like drag celebration has bled into the recent 2024 Olympics. What'd you think of the Olympic opening ceremony?
Yeah, it was deliberately designed to test the resolve of the Christian nations. And when I say Christian nations, in fact, I mean the populations of Christian nations, because there's not very many Christian countries left. You can't call America the Christian country anymore, because They protect the pride flag more than they protect Jesus Christ. So it's not a Christian country. I think it's like they wanted to test what resolve is left because they're trying to destroy Western values, which means you have to destroy Christianity along with it. And they've been doing that for a very long time. And they wanted to poke the bear and see what kind of backlash they would get. They had to test their enemies' defenses. So they deliberately desecrated Christ. And it's so sad. You know, I've been thinking about this whole LGBT thing because it's easy to clown on and we insult her all the time. But I really believe that if you look at the beginnings of the LGBT propaganda movement, a lot of it began with this idea that gay people were brilliant and they were being suppressed because of their sexuality, and society was against them, which prevented them from adding and contributing to society. So if you look at Alan Turing, I believe his name is the British guy who helped solve the Enigma code, and he was gay, and they're saying because he's homosexual, he could have done all these amazing things, but he was homosexual, it held him back, and blah, blah. And that was the beginning of the propaganda, which is fine, but they gave us this idea that they're going to free the gay people from their chains, and they're going to contribute to society in some way. We're going to let them out the cage, and they're going to do all these amazing things. What have they done besides desecrate Jesus Christ, dance naked in front of our children, try and convince little kids to chop their genitals off? Like, what have they achieved? Okay, they made a couple TV shows where, you know, they run around being as gay as possible. Like, where's the contribution to humanity that we were promised? Because the beginning of the psyop was they're going to contribute to humanity and do all these amazing things. Turns out they did fuck all. They did nothing. They've detrimented society. And that is all culminated at the Olympic opening ceremony where you see them all sit up there and insult Jesus Christ. There's no reason why you want to insult the beliefs of billions of people. Like, there's no reason you're going to do that if you're a good person. Like, that's done purposefully. They want to see what kind of backlash they would receive. They wanted to see how damaged the psyche of society is. They were hoping that would go under the radar. They hoped they could just pull it off. Nothing would happen. And they could say, look, the Christians really, truly have no bite left. They have nothing left in them.
It's really interesting. What they did was similar to something that America did during World War II. Disney made like a portrayal of Nazi Germany. They had like Donald Duck as Hitler. They were trying to make like the Nazis seem less like scary, I guess, and kind of make a joke out of it. Do you think it's a similar thing here to make Christianity seem less important? Or do you think it's just a test of how much they'll back it?
Yeah, I think it was a test of the Christians' resolve. And yeah, it was to mock the idea of the Last Supper. It was to mock the idea of Jesus dying for your sins. It was just to mock and make light of the whole idea of religion, because religion's in the way of a lot of the things they want to do. Right? They have things they have to attack. They have to attack masculinity because it's in the way. They have to attack religion because it's in the way. If they come along and say, we want to do X, Y, Z, if a man doesn't say no, there's still going to be a certain populace or a percentage of the populace who are going to say, no, my holy book says no. That is against God. So God's in their way. So they try and remove these things because what they're trying to do is just create a slave class of people who obey every single thing they're told, who listen to every single thing that's said on the TV, who do not use their own eyes to come to their own objective conclusions. If they say the sky is green, they want people to go outside and look up and go, I must have had my colors wrong all my life. The TV said the sky is green. And religion's in the way of that. So they're trying to get rid of the idea of Christianity because they're trying to destroy Western society as a whole. Western society is, I guess, I like to believe, in many ways, the pinnacle of humanity. It's done so many amazing things. And I'm not from a Chinese background. I'm not Arabic. I'm not from South America, so I can't speak to the benefits of their society. I can only speak to what I'm from. I'm from a Western society. I think they've created an amazing world. And they're trying to destroy it from the inside out. It's rotting from the inside out. And that's the saddest thing, that's when you watch a country like America fall as the empire burns, is that it's not just external enemies attacking America. It would actually be a lot easier to swallow if you were watching America be destroyed by external enemies while the American populace galvanized and tried their very best to resist. That would be a much easier thing to swallow than watch what is happening, which is the enemies of America truly don't have enough power to damage America, but we're suffering from this mass betrayal from the inside. And it's kind of sad to see. And Christianity's in the way, masculinity's in the way, honor's in the way, duty's in the way, virtue's in the way. There's a lot of things in the way which are all attacked permanently. And objective truth is in the way. the idea that you can pretend a man is a woman and you are forced to call that man a woman and forced to use their pronouns is an attack on objective truth. They don't want you to know what is right and wrong, left and right, up and down, blue, red, green. No, there's no objective truth now. Everything is subjective. Everything can change depending on the day. You must ignore your own eyes. It's the final command they want. Your eyes say man. Your mouth says woman because the TV said so. And that's the final level of the slave programming, because then, I mean, if you're going to tell a lie, right, and you have to objectively prove it, that's quite difficult. If you have to say, we want people to believe the sky is green, the sky's not green. Well, these people use their eyes, so we now need to go out of our way to somehow turn the sky green.
Yeah.
But if people don't use their eyes, you don't have to do that hard part. You can just say it.
It's all emotional
It's
arguments.
all just emotional arguments. So you're like, oh, well, we want the sky to be green. We're not going to actually change it to green. That's too hard. We just say it's green and everyone's going to listen because everybody ignores their own eyes. So it's a war against objective truth. That's what a lot of this transgenderism garbage is. And the reason they try and enforce it and force you to pretend men are women when they're not is because they want you to ignore the realities of Earth. I argue with people all the time. They say I'm a misogynist. I say, you don't even know what a woman is. If the gender's not real, how is the bigotry real? Like, you explain to me what a woman is and then explain to me why I'm a misogynist. It's clown world. So there's not even any objective truth left. It's scary, the world we're headed to.
Before we get into more global issues, you said a few years ago in a podcast that you speak about issues like Israel, Palestine, you talk about your support for Donald Trump, but you don't really care about these things because they don't personally benefit you. Have you had enough success now that your personal benefit doesn't really matter?
Yeah, when I said that, I think I know the podcast you're talking about. I think I know the video you're talking about. And I was trying to explain to people who are perhaps not as successful not to get caught up in certain ideas. And the problem is if you get caught up in too many external ideas, you can't focus on yourself and improving your life. And you can't pour from an empty cup. So let me give an example. Let's say I was unsuccessful. I work in Starbucks, and that's my life. Not to insult the people who work in Starbucks, but, get over it. So you work at Starbucks, and I am passionate about the Gaza-Israel war. I should take all that passion, and I should direct it towards improving myself as a man to where I'm at the point that people are going to listen to me. So when I talk about Israel-Gaza, people listen because I have a voice. If you work in Starbucks, you don't really have as much of a voice. So I guess the point I was trying to make is that if you improve yourself as a man, then your views and your opinions hold a lot more weight. And you should perhaps do that as opposed to get caught up in trying to force an opinion or force a view when you're not necessarily that successful.
So now you actually have influence, so you should care about these things. Because
Absolutely.
you can persuade people. Yeah.
Absolutely, because I have influence. Now, I mean, I could argue against myself and say, well, the common man can still go protest and he can join a protest and make a difference. That's true. And the common man still has a degree of influence as to what he will accept from a government. We say the governments are in charge. Well, to a degree, that's true. But truthfully, it's the people who are in charge because we decide how much we accept. If all the people refuse, the government can't do very much at all. So I could argue against myself in that point. But I guess there's just a lot of people I met who are so ideologically involved or invested in certain things that it prevents them from growing. And I think that as a man, if you truly care about the world, you need to improve yourself first. Because as a man, if you're not capable, your love means nothing anyway, right? You can say I'm a man and I love my dog. But if you can't feed that dog and you can't home that dog and you can't afford to take that dog to the vets and you can't protect that dog, then your love means nothing. Your love as a man is directly correlated to your competence and your capabilities. So when a man who is capable loves you, it means something. A man who's incapable loves you, it means nothing at all. So if you're incapable, not necessarily important, not necessarily financially successful person, it doesn't matter what you feel about anything because you could be replaced and nobody gives a shit. So if you truly care about that, I guess the lesson is if you truly care about an issue, as a man, the first thing you should do is you should improve yourself. If you have a woman who you truly love, instead of buying her flowers every day, you should improve yourself. If you have a town that you truly love, instead of, I don't know what you would do, instead of telling everyone how great it is, you should improve yourself and you should start a business in that town so that there's more jobs in that town. It doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. Self-improvement is the answer to showing your love for anything as a man. So when I see people say, oh yeah, I really love my girlfriend or whatever, and then I look at the guy, I say, no, you don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't be sleeping so long. You wouldn't be so insignificant. You'd be trying harder in some way. You'd be doing something. You're not doing anything. If you're not doing anything, you don't love anybody.
This isn't really about your point, but I'm just genuinely curious. Do you tell the women you're with that you love them?
Yeah, why not?
Did you ever used to have a weird thing about that, like some hesitancy?
No, I'm full of love. I'm a nice man. I think the idea of love is kind of confused, right? Because if I've had a girl for a very long time, or girls, I guess we can go down that route, but love is absolutely real. But people conflate that with allowing yourself to be disrespected. Like, I can say to a woman, look, I love you with all my heart, but if you talk to me wrong, you're out. And it doesn't matter if I miss you because I'm stubborn. So it's fine. Like, I'm stubborn as they come. So, like, if I'm not going to listen to the Matrix, if they're not going to control me and scare me, you think I'm going to listen to you? No, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to take care of you, and you're going to talk to me nicely, and that's how this relationship's going to work. I love her, absolutely, but I would never put myself in a position where I'm being disrespected because I love somebody, or I'm allowing her to do whatever she wants because I love her. In fact, it's very much the opposite. When you're a man and you love, we talk about self-improvement and becoming a better version of yourself so you can give more. That's true. But also, you improve yourself so that she respects you more, so you can lay more boundaries. Yeah. Like, if you love a woman, you're like, I love you, don't go out at night. I love you, you're not going to a club with a bunch of dudes. I love you, you're not doing that. And if she isn't listening, well, that's probably your fault. Because if you were more important, or you were more capable, or if she saw more in you, then she would listen. So perhaps you need to replace her, perhaps you need to improve yourself, whatever it is. But love as a man actually comes with a lot of parameters. Look at how a dad raises a kid. No, stop, no. The mom's like, yay, fun. And the dad's like, no, don't do this, don't do that. He's a disciplinarian, typically. So I think the masculine realm is very much like that. Like, even with my girl, sometimes I say, she'll go, oh, I'm really tired, I need to go to the... I'm like, you know what? I've seen how you drive when you're not tired. You're not driving. I'm sending a security team to drive you around because you're just going to crash. You're just useless, you know? And that makes me misogynistic to some women, but to the women I'm with, they love it. They're like, my problems are fixed. I don't have to think. He just fixes everything for me all the time. But that's because I'm capable, right? I can do those things. So, yeah, love is real.
People say it's misogynistic, but they've never had a man actually do those things for them.
Well, you know what's interesting? You can't be the kind of man women want you to be unless you're misogynistic. Because if you're not misogynistic in any regard, and you think a woman can do everything as well as a man can, then you're going to expect her to pay half on the bills and half on the dates and to protect herself and to take care of herself. And you're not going to ever be the gentleman Prince Charming she wants you to be. Women say, I want a man who pays for me and takes care of me and educates me and knows things I don't know and shows me things I've never seen and makes sure that I'm physically safe. Okay, cool. You're describing a man who sees you as, in many regards, below him. You're describing a misogynist. For me to turn up and take a girl somewhere and expect her to pay half the bill, I'd expect her to have the kind of money I have. Yeah. Whereas I know she hasn't. Because the only way you get money like mine as a woman is to be with me. So I'm a misogynist. Like, you're going to be to a degree misogynistic if you're realistic. And people also confuse the other side of the equation. I'm misandrist with certain things. There's things I don't trust men with. I would never drop my child off at a male-only daycare. I don't trust men with children because I don't think men have the patience. I would never like the idea of I would never choose a female pilot over a male pilot because men are calmer under pressure. And if the plane starts shaking in a thunderstorm, I don't want anyone to start having an emotional breakdown. Maybe they saw an episode of Sex and the City before they got on the plane and they're a bit upset about their ex and now they're shaking the plane. No, I don't need it. So you can call me a misogynist all you want. If you're a realist, if you are a realist and you're going to see the world for what it is, to a degree, you're going to have some opinions which are misogynistic. You're going to have opinions which are homophobic. You're going to have opinions which are racist. You're going to have certain opinions about certain things. If you sit and say that there are certain places in the world where violent crime is a lot more likely to happen than in the Western world, they'll turn around to you and say, you're racist. I don't care if they're brown. I care that it's a violent society. But you're racist. Fine, I'm a realist. That's what I am. If you're a realist, you have to be prepared for all these insults. The funny thing about these insults is that they're never given with good intention. The people who call me a misogynist don't give a shit about women. They don't give a shit about protecting women. They don't care about women's rights. They just don't like me. So it's weaponized virtue, right? They can't call me stupid and they can't call me unsuccessful and they can't call me the things they want to call me. So instead they have to say I'm a bad person. So they take this virtue and they weaponize it into a bullet and they shoot at me, but it's bullshit. They don't care about women. I spend $25 million a year on TatePledge.com feeding children. They feed nobody. They've never fed a single starving little girl in their lives. And then they pretend they care more about females than I do because I say women can't protect themselves and should be protected. It's all clown world.
I want to touch on your dynamics with women in a bit, but The 2024 U.S. election is coming up. What outcomes are possible, and which outcomes do you prefer?
Well, there's only two outcomes, friend. There's two outcomes. We have a chance or it's over. If they manage to steal this election from Trump, it is so over. It's over for a variety of reasons. In fact, because the fact that we're not currently in a situation where Trump has a 99% approval rate shows that it's already almost over for the West. The fact that there are full-grown adults who will sit there and want Kamala to girl boss her way into office, as opposed to getting one of the most competent and successful businessmen on the planet back in office, who had the most successful presidency in history ever. And we don't want him back. No, we want this girl boss who is universally hated and who's never done an interview, won't sit down. She's never told you her policy. She's never told you her intention to fix anything. She has no track record of competence, nothing. But she's a girl and girl boss. So let's make her in charge of the most powerful military on the planet. The fact that there is a percentage of the population who want that to happen shows that it's already over. There's a lot of things you can disagree on. And you can say, well, I respect your opinion, but we disagree. If you want Kamala to win, you are an idiot. I do not respect your opinion. You're 100% stupid. You shouldn't be allowed to vote. You're genuinely dumb. Because when you even ask these people their reason, they're going to say some identity politics crap. She's a black girl. So, who gives a shit if she's purple? If she's incompetent, she's incompetent. Name one thing she's ever done as VP. Name one thing she's promised to do that you actually care about. And when I've asked this question, the only answer I seem to get is about abortion, which is really amazing to me that you have people inside of America who will sit there and go, okay, we're on the verge of World War III with Israel and Gaza and Lebanon and Iran. We're on the verge of World War III with Russia and Ukraine. Inflation's out of control. Nobody can afford groceries. Crime is out of control. The southern border is wide open. Drugs are out of control. Like, there's all these things that are important, and they'll go, ignore. I want to kill my baby, so I'm voting for Kamala. Like, the fact that that's even your mindset shows you're a dumbass. If you want to vote for Kamala, you're an idiot. It's going to be over for Western civilization if they steal this from Trump for a variety of reasons. One, for all the reasons I just described as regards to who her voters are and how they've managed to use the media machine to psyop people into believing she's a better choice than Trump. The fact they've even managed to do that is remarkable. But secondly, it's going to destroy all faith in democratic institutions because America is the bedrock of democracy. And we know they steal elections now already, but there's a certain amount of people in the world who believe that they don't steal elections. Well, they're going to see. Because if they're stealing them in America, you think they're not stealing them in fucking Myanmar? You think they didn't just steal the French one when Marine Le Pen was winning and then she blinked and she lost and Macron's back? Who the fuck likes Macron? Find me a single person on the planet who's a fan of Macron. Who marries a woman 35 years older than him? It's weird. If she's a woman at all. Probably a dude. Looks like a fucking dude. So you can add some criminal charges to France for the list. So they're stealing the elections everywhere around the world.
But what happens if Kamala wins the election tomorrow?
Okay, so if Kamala wins the election tomorrow, it's a good question. I'm going to feel very sorry for people. I think that it's just going to be, we're going to be closer and closer towards slavery.
Do we see riots, you think?
Well, that's why they did January 6th, right? They taught everyone a lesson for January 6th. BLM, if you riot for the side of the matrix, you're allowed to riot. If you riot for the other side, even though they didn't even riot, if you peacefully protest for the other side, then you face the full force of the law. So it's going to be very interesting. If Kamala wins, I think that the whole idea of Western civilization is going to accelerate in its decline. I don't think Trump can save it. I think he can slow it down. I think he's massively important for the culture, for all the things we just talked about, masculinity. Trump's a masculine man. I think he's good for the culture. I think he'll have a fantastic 4 years. I think he can do a lot to slow things down. However, if Kamala gets in, it's going to accelerate the LGBT, girl boss, garbage bullshit, along with terrible policy, along with the people who are actually in charge of America, who won't be Kamala, raping the tax base, stealing as much money as possible, accelerating inflation. And what's actually going to happen is you're going to see that as America descends into poverty, which it does. The fact that American culture is extremely thin is going to be highlighted, and then it's going to be, you say riots. I think mass civil unrest. I think crime will get out of control and it'll be mass civil unrest because there's nothing unifying the country besides the idea you can get rich. In other countries, if you go to Croatia, everybody speaks the same language. Everybody's seen the same TV shows. Everybody's grandma kind of looks the same. Everybody has this unifying factor behind them. Everyone knows the Croatian flag. Everyone learned the same history. In America, some people like the flag. Some people hate the flag. Some people think America's good. Some people think America's bad. Everyone speaks different languages. Everyone has different religion. Everyone looks different. The only thing that unifies America is we can all get rich. Well, once we realize that's not the case, as they continue to inflate the currency and steal from the tax base, crime's going to get worse and worse and worse. And now we have this insane policies on race where if you commit crime as a certain race, you're less likely to get in trouble, or they don't want to arrest you, or they don't want to show your mugshot or give you a more lenient sentence. So now you have a division of the races. The native white man in America is a second-class citizen. I say that as a brown person. The native white person in England is a second-class citizen. So you have the natives who pay the most tax, or second-class citizens, paying taxes to afford the children of people who are invading the country and shouldn't even be there, and out reproducing them 8-to-1. The average white family has 1 or 2 kids. These migrant families have 8, 9, 10. Like, everything's collapsing. Like, it's collapsing. If Kamala wins, it's all going to be accelerated because they're going to prove that. Well, what's interesting is if Kamala wins, they prove you don't have a democratic solution to your problems. So that puts the sensible person in a very difficult position. Then you don't have many choices left. Because right now, people are still coping with this voting idea. We'll vote our way out of this. Don't worry, we'll vote our way out. Once they realize that's not possible, well, then you have 2 choices. You run away. You have 3 choices. You run away, you change country. You sit there waiting to die, or you try and fix it. But unfortunately, without a political solution, the only way you can fix things is violence. And then you have civil war.
Andrew, you have a quote, women aren't interested in voting. They care about Instagram likes and a rich man putting them on a boat.
True.
How does, do you think women actually vote in the elections?
No.
Do you think immigrants vote?
No. So what they're doing is they're using women and illegal immigrants as a cop-out for how they rig the elections. I've messaged the 50 or 60 women I know in America and asked if they're voting. 4 said yes. And then I asked them if they ever voted before, and they all said no. And all 4 are voting Trump, by the way. I don't think women are as interested in voting as men on a whole. And I think the women who are interested in voting probably vote the same as their husbands. And their husband is probably going to be voting right. I think the reason that they push so hard the female vote, and they especially, the whole female idea, people can argue with me on, perhaps that's a conspiracy theory, but I'm sure the illegal immigrant part's true. But it's the same. There's no way they would get away with these bullshit policies they get through if only masculine men were voting. Everyone would know that it's set up, right? So they say, yes, Trump lost because of the female vote, which is a lie. They just say it's the female vote so they can rig it. They do it especially with illegal immigrants. Anyone with a brain knows that anybody who snuck their way into America and shouldn't be there and has managed to cross the jungle and get into America, and now he's trying to find money to live and eat. There is no way he cares enough to go stand in line at a polling station and cast a vote. Not at large enough numbers to affect the election, at least. There's no way that's possible. It doesn't even make logical sense. And you could sit and say, oh, no, that's not true. They'd vote Dem because the Dems will let them stay. They don't listen to the news. And also, these people don't trust the Dems or anyone else. Why would they trust the Dems? They don't give a shit. They're in America. They're not supposed to be there. They're trying to make money and lay low. There's no way they're waiting in lines at polling stations. They're just flooding the country with illegal immigrants so that they can rig the election. They can cast votes, as many as they want, with these fake ballots. And they can say the illegal immigrants did it. And we can't check them on it because they could say, it was an illegal immigrant with no passport and no name. And that's why it happened. There's no way that they're casting their own votes. It's all just a setup. What you're eventually going to get to. I guess the most fair democratic electoral systems on the planet now are places like Venezuela, where both sides cheat. Because, it's like, they're cheating, we're cheating. Who cheats the best? At least to a degree, it's a competence test, right? The better team wins because they're better at cheating. The more competent government wins. But now in the West, you have one team cheating, the other team going law and order. And I guess, the Republicans don't care because they're stealing from the pot just like the Democrats are. They don't want Trump to win either. They'd only want to win if it was a leader that would allow them to steal.
Why don't Republicans want Trump to win?
Because Trump is in the way of the people who are really in charge of America being in charge of America, which are the intelligence operations and the military-industrial complex and the banks and the media. And Trump is the kind of person who stands in the way and doesn't agree with everything he's told. If you're a Kamala voter, let me ask you a simple question. When she gets office and the shadow figures call her, the people who are really in charge of the world, and they say, we need to do this, and it's going to be bad for the American population, but it's going to be good for them. It's going to enrich the rich, and it's going to be bad for the normal man. You really think Kamala is going to stick up for you? You really think Kamala Harris is going to go, not on my watch, no way? And
she's a girl boss.
And yeah, she's a girl boss, yeah. And she's going to risk getting bullets fired at her like they're doing at Trump? You think she's going to risk taking a fucking bullet in the dome for you? She doesn't give a shit. She's going to do what Biden did. Okay. She probably won't even answer the phone. She'll probably just put a voicemail on it saying, yes to whatever you want. Leave me alone. Please don't kill me. Yeah. Fucking useless. And I mean, Trump will slow it down, but the fact that there's still there shouldn't even be a competition. It's remarkable this is even a competition, that they've managed to psyop people into somehow believing that Kamala is competent enough to lead a country. I wouldn't trust her to run a fucking coffee shop. Unbelievable.
What would happen if Trump were killed tomorrow?
You know what's kind of interesting about Trump's situations? Because you have to analyze Trump's job is to save America. Does he save America by winning the election or losing the election? Does he save America by staying alive or getting killed? Like, because in different ways, he does damage to the system. Trump's now...
I'm sure you thought about this for your own situation.
Well, absolutely. That's exactly right. You get to a certain point where either way it goes, you can still damage the system. If Trump wins, he'll do his very best to save America, and it'll be a fantastic president. He'll be a massive for the culture. If he loses, he highlights that elections aren't fair, which is still a very important lesson that a lot of people at home need to learn. So either way, it's good. If they let him live, he can run for president and achieve one of those two things. We'll probably build a little diagram off of this. Does Trump live? Yes. Okay. Does he win? X. Does he lose? Y. Does Trump get assassinated? Well, now they're highlighting they're scared of him, highlighting that the Matrix and the military-industrial complex are real because they're prepared to assassinate people and they don't believe in elections. They don't want there to be a fair democratic choice. They'd rather fix everything with a bullet. So Trump's now at a position where he does damage to the Matrix irregardless, which is, I mean, nobody wants him to die. I'm a huge fan of him. He doesn't want to be martyred. We don't want him to be martyred. That would be terrible. But at least he's now in a position where it's win-win for him and his mission. I guess that's the ultimate goal of any man, to be put in a position where, regardless of any way it goes, it's win-win. I'm in the same position. I'm a legend if they lock me up. I'm a legend if they let me go. So,
you spoke with Candace. When I had her on the podcast a few weeks ago, she said that the deep state was responsible for the assassination. Do you believe it was some lone shooter or?
Oh, it's never a lone shooter. That's bullshit. Some guy, there's one roof in the whole area. Some dude climbed up on that roof with a long-barreled gun, managed to get a bunch of shots off. Once Trump went down, because they didn't know if he was shot or he knelt down, then he was killed. You know, of course he was killed. They're always killed. The guy who killed JFK, he was killed in jail. He was stabbed to death. The guy who stabbed him to death was stabbed to death. Yeah. Coincidence, right? Like, of course, there's always some lone shooter. Then they sit and they bring in the head of the Secret Service. This bimbo sits there, says nothing important. Oh, yeah, I tried my best. Fire her, get rid of her.
Why won't Trump say this? Well, I listened to the Spaces the other night.
Yeah, he wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But then when you're in his position of power, sometimes you have to choose your enemies. It's like, you really want to make an enemy of the Secret Service? I mean, it's hard. It's not easy. Even me. People think I'm outspoken. I promise. Even on this podcast, there's a whole bunch of things I want to say that I cannot say because I just won't live long enough.
Read that agencies is one of them.
Well, that's right. And you have to decide. You have to say, do I skirt or do I take certain concessions so I can do more damage to the Matrix by existing for longer? Or do I go all guns blazing for one podcast and get in a car crash on the way out? It's like, it's hard. So yeah, he has to pretend that the Secret Service did a good job when truthfully they were incompetent. The president was shot. They failed on every level. The woman who was in charge of them should never have been in charge of them, should have never had female officers in the first place. Now that female officer everyone was mocking on Twitter is now defending J.D. Vance. She hasn't lost her job. She's still the woman who can't find her holster. I mean, I can find my holster. Like, it's unbelievable. This goes back into gender roles where we sit and say that men are good at certain things and women are good at certain things, but you're not allowed to say that because that makes you misogynistic. You're not allowed to be objectively realistic and sit and say that a man should be in charge of the protection of the president. Show me Putin's security team. Why don't we get our Secret Service agents, take their weapons, get Putin's team, take their weapons, and let's see Russia versus America. Let's fix it. Those Sambo experts, those Sistema experts from Russia will tear our agents apart. It won't even be a fight. It won't even be a competition. Have you seen Putin's bodyguards? They're killers. And we're talking about the most important man in the world. And we're like, yeah, but what's more important? Keeping him safe or girl bosses? What's more? We need more girl bosses. Society is broken down to a level. It's absolutely unacceptable. It's crazy. It's truly crazy. You know what's really overused? The word need and want are confused. I have these arguments with people at the time. I'm with my girl and she goes, I need a coffee. I say, don't say need. You want a coffee. Don't say need. I don't like when people say need when they don't. You need air. You need air and me. You don't need coffee. And you see this all the time with DEI. We need more female agents. No, you want more female agents to push an agenda. Why do we need them? If it's not to push your agenda, why do we need them? We can't get the job done with big, strong men? No, we can't. It's all clown world. But Trump can't say it. And maybe Trump's a very smart man. I'm a huge fan of his. He probably knows a lot of things I don't know, of course. Perhaps he's had conversations in dark rooms and are like, look, if you want to have a chance to even win this and stay alive long enough, you got to be friends with XYZ. You can tell the truth about this, but you have to lie about this. It's just, and that doesn't make him a bad person. That's him just trying to do concessions to stay alive. I completely get it. But yeah, it was a massive failure. And it was 100% a setup. There's no way you can just climb on a roof, the only roof in the vicinity, at a rally. Why was that the first televised Trump rally ever?
Very strange.
I mean, but that shows how evil they are, right? They're so evil. They wanted the world to watch him get his brains blown out. They wanted you to see that clip on repeat thousands of times of him taking a bullet to the fucking dome and half his head missing. And they wanted that to happen to teach you all a lesson for what happens when you talk against our authority. Send the MSM to get it on camera, his head coming off. Unbelievable.
A key tenet of Satanism is showing
truly
what you're
evil.
doing.
Truly evil. And whoever decided that, whoever made that call, no one's investigating him. No one's even talking about him anymore. Now we've forgotten the assassination. It's all fixed. We fired the head of the Secret Service. We've replaced it with some other useless idiot. The same useless officers are in charge. Whoever decided to kill Trump, who cares who that was? Oh, it was this guy. This one guy with no social media who barely existed on the internet. Him. He did it. And we killed him as soon as he got all his bullets off. Fucking sad.
He was also in a BlackRock commercial, but
yeah,
there's that.
Coincidence. Oh yeah, coincidence. He was in a BlackRock commercial. The three people in Mr. Beast's video, one of them wanted to be a tranny. These are all just coincidences. You have to be a conspiracy theorist to, connect the fucking dots.
What would it take to save American politics?
Well, I think you need a competent nationalist, which is what Trump is. But it should always be a competition between competent nationalists. The fact that it's not a competition between competent nationalists shows a failing of the system in the first place. It should be two people who are competent, who know exactly what they're doing, who both love America. That's what it should be. Instead, it's always usually, well, in recent times it's Trump, right? But so you have a competent nationalist against an incompetent person who hates America. Why is this even a competition? And that shows that a huge percentage of the population are not only themselves incompetent and stupid, but they also hate America. So they're living inside of America and they hate it. Well, then go somewhere else. Leave America if it's so racist. I love to. America's racist. Fine. You say America's racist, Grace. Tell me a country that's not racist. Japan's racist. China's racist. Thailand's fucking racist. Africa's racist. I've been. Hutu, Tutu, this, that. They all look the same to people outside. Inside of Africa, they're super racist. Different tribes are going to war, killing each other. America's one of the least racist places on the fucking planet. You're dumb if you don't realize that. Right? So, yeah, to save American politics, you need to have competent nationalists. You need to have fair elections to actually matter. The president needs to have actual power to make policy and decisions instead of the military-industrial complex and the three-letter agencies and the banks and the media. We have to get the power back, but the world is cyclical, right? And democracy is a great idea that is born from the failure of having a king. you have a king and he's fantastic and he builds a nation and the nation does well. And then he has a son who's not quite as good as the original king, but he does his best. And he has another son. And by then he's a spoiled little brat and he doesn't fucking pay attention. And the whole thing starts to fall apart and people start to riot and say, we don't want a king anymore. We want to choose our own leader. So let's bring a democracy. So they choose their own leader and the democracy comes and they want to prove that having a king is not the right way to go and having a democracy is the correct way to run a country. So they do a fantastic job and they start to build things. And then over time, the democracy degrades just like the empire or just like the royal family degraded. And over time, people start to realize that if they get into a position of power or democracy, that they don't really have to change very much. They can just steal as much as possible. And as the democracy degrades, you end up in the final stages of it where we are now, where most people with a brain would go back to a king. Everything is cyclical. If you were to say right now, do you want to make Trump forever leader? You'd be like, yep, to the end. And who do you want after him? Baron Trump. Yep.
When the oppressed conquer their oppressors, the empire often becomes weaker.
Well, there you go. Yeah, there you go. So I think most people with a brain in America right now would allocate the Trump family to forever leaders. We'd say, okay, let's give us a king back for a while until they fuck it up and then we'll go back to a democracy. Everything is cyclical. Nothing lasts forever, right? So we're in the final stages of not only the Western Empire, but we're in the final stages of the idea of democracies now because even the idea, the faith in the democracy has been eroded so heavily. And I guess maybe Trump's job, we're going to have to see what God's job for Trump is. Is it his job to get into power and try and save America and be good for the masculine culture? Or is it his job to lose? So everybody realizes that elections aren't real. We're going to see. But it's win-win either way.
What are your 3 favorite countries and least 3 favorite countries?
It's difficult to answer because it's favorite for what? Because there's good and bad of everywhere. You know, because I would say Romania. Okay, well, Romania is one of my favorite countries for a lot of reasons. It's highly religious. It's very safe. There's beautiful nature. There's lots to do. You can walk around. I walk around wearing $1 million watch, driving a $3 million car. Nobody messes with me. It's perfectly safe. Girls walk alone at night. It's all great. But then the legal system's a nightmare. I can tell you from personal experience, right? So there's good and bad for each place. So it's like, which country has my favorite legal system? Which country has the best nature? Which country is best to visit? Because sometimes visiting a country is different than living in a country. They're all very different things. And what you'll often find, the true red pill of it all, is that there's no light without dark. So all of the things you love about a country quite often come from all of the negative things about a country. So I just described Romania, the fact it's safe to walk alone at night. And any of you or any woman can walk alone at night and it's perfectly safe. That is true. The reason for that is because the legal system's a mess. Because if they catch you doing anything, you're going to jail. And you're stuck there and you're not getting out. And it doesn't matter. You know, like, I can tell you endless examples. If you go to America, cars get broken into, cars get stolen. Here, cars don't get stolen. In fact, there was a couple car thefts once. It was big on the news. That's how big of a deal it was. There was a couple car thefts on this particular street. The police set up an undercover agent and they saw someone walking up and down the street, and a guy who was looking in a car window got picked up. Now, in America, you can't arrest someone and put someone in jail for looking in a car window. Here, they can go, there were some car thefts last month. He looked in the window. Meh, close enough, year. And they put him in jail for a year without trial. So it's like, yeah, it's safe.
It's a good country till it happens to you.
That's right. So it's like, which side of it are you on? When you're walking along with your family, you're looking around going, it's so fantastic here, it's so safe. When you're in jail, you're like, this is not fair. Yeah. So it's the same in Japan. Japan has a 99% conviction rate. That's because if you go to court in Japan, you're going to jail. Did you do it? Who cares? Society's safe. So it's like, do you want what's best for the ant or do you want what's best for the ant farm? They're different things. If you're an ant who's been sent to die for the ant farm, you're unhappy. But if you're one of the ants in the ant farm who wasn't sent to die, but the ant farm's safer, you are happy. There's no perfect place. I mean, you look at America and England. Okay, yeah, you haven't got to fear the law as much, but now you have to fear the criminals because they get bail and they walk away, you know, or they get out on some human rights crap, or they only do 2 years or whatever. In fact, the worst country for that is actually America because you have to fear the criminals and the law. They'll fuck you over some financial crimes and they'll let murderers walk. The whole thing's a joke. In England, you don't have to fear the law very much. You only have to fear the criminals, but London's out of control. In Romania, there's no criminals, but the real mafia are the government. You don't want to mess with them here. It's hard for me to say what my favorite country is. Everything like Romania
is the US or UK in your bottom 3?
Well, I feel betrayed by them. They've betrayed me because they're run by Globo Homo. Like, if I was gay and I was this famous, I'd be standing next to the leaders of the country. And I would be basically above the law and untouchable and celebrated as the beacon of Western civilization. But because I'm not gay, because I go against their agendas, they're trying to put me in jail and they've betrayed me. So now that's not a particularly Western thing. I want to make this clear. We talk about the fact that the Matrix will put you in jail if you speak against authority. That's the truth anywhere. If you talk against Putin in Russia, you're going to die. If you talk against Xi in China, you're going to die. If you talk against a power in the West, you don't die first. First they try jail. Then they'll kill you. I mean, Russia might try jail too. They might give you a chance. But it's the same everywhere. The thing is, if you live in Russia or China, you probably agree with your leader because they're competent. The problem is in the West, you can't agree with the leader unless you're mentally insane because they're not competent and they're idiots. So we're in a very difficult quagmire where in other countries, sure, you can't speak against authority, but at least you believe that authority is competent. Whereas in the West, we don't have that luxury. We're ruled by idiots. Or I wouldn't even say idiots. They're not stupid. They're treasonous. They know what they're doing. They're not dumb. They're just treasonous and evil, more than stupid. So America and England have betrayed me and abandoned me because of my views, which makes me feel kind of homeless. I mean, it's kind of sad to think that your host nations have betrayed you. If I was Azerbaijani and I was this famous, I'd be one of the most respected men in Azerbaijan. I'd be having lunch in the presidential palace with the president of Azerbaijan. Everything would be fine. My nations should be happy for what I'm doing. What am I doing? I'm teaching young men how to make money. I'm inspiring young men to work hard and go to the gym. I'm inspiring young men to stick up for what they believe is right. I should be celebrated as a cultural phenomenon. Instead, I'm attacked. So yeah, I've been betrayed by them, and it makes me feel quite sad because I am patriotic and I do love both nations. But what can you do when they're run by a homosexual mafia who are mad at anybody who doesn't want to chop his dick off? What can you do about it? And I mean, I'm not Russian. I can't say, oh, I love Putin. I love how Russia thinks. I'm Russian. I'm not actually Russian. I don't speak Russian. I'm not actually from there. And what's another thing that's interesting when you get to a certain level of fame and wealth is that you realize why people stay in the countries they're from. Because if you're a Brazilian billionaire, you stay in Brazil quite often. If you're an American billionaire, you stay in America quite often. You say, well, why is that? Well, at a certain level of influence and wealth, you become a target, not just for criminals, but also for governments. If I move to somewhere obscure, right? Let's say I move to, I don't know, Uzbekistan. I'm going to move to Uzbekistan. Everyone leave me alone. You're telling me that Uzbekistanis aren't going to sit around going, we have one of the most famous rich men in the world here. Has he given you any money? Has he given you any money? Has he given you any money? No, he hasn't paid nobody any money. All right, okay. That's fine. Years go by. I keep talking about Uzbekistan. I'm living in Uzbekistan, living this great life, sleeping with their women, driving on their roads. You tell me sooner or later someone, even if it's not at the top level, even if it's a lower level, even if it's a lower police chief, a judge, whoever, I've had enough of this. He better pay me something. And before you know it, you're in a cell again for some reason, you know? I'm sure if I would have given enough money to Romanian political parties, this wouldn't have happened to me. And I was asked often if I wanted to invest. And I thought, I don't want to donate. I don't want to donate to the wrong team and get myself in trouble. So I tried to stay out of it. Then when you're in jail, they're like, oh, so which political parties did you donate to? Because you can call that.
I was surprised that you didn't, actually.
Well, I tried to stay out of politics because that's how you get in trouble. So I thought I'll just stay out of it. I'm American. They won't mess with me because I'm American and I'm good for the country. But once America gave the green light to do it, because they had to ask.
Do you see yourself becoming a donor now?
Well, right. I don't. That's what I mean. I don't know anymore. People keep saying to me, Andrew, where are you going to go? I don't know. My host nations have betrayed me. All the countries I'd like to live in are still under.
Would it be an Islamic country or a Muslim country?
Well, yeah. I was going to say most of the countries I'd like to live in, besides, let's say, Dubai or Saudi Arabia, etc., but even those, they're still within Western Hemisphere in regards to influence. If the American government wants you, it's very hard for a government to say no. That's the American government. As clown world as they are, if the American government's like, we need this guy, it's very difficult for any government, Dubai or anywhere else, to say, no, we're going to protect him. Because I'm not from there. I'm not their guy. It's different if I was Saudi and I'm in Saudi and Americans want a Saudi. But when the Americans want an American in Saudi, they're like, are you really going to fuck everything up between us over this dude? You don't even know what he's done. He's done this, 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 and this. And the Saudis don't know what they're lying on. They're like, okay. And they get you. I might become a pirate. I'm thinking of buying a yacht and going out to international waters and living a few years at sea. Problem is I hate the ocean and I don't swim in it ever. But maybe I'll just, to make a political point that I can't trust any nation now on earth, I'm going to go live on a boat somewhere until they eventually raid me with helicopters. Black SEAL Team 6 turn up to take me to jail or
maybe
something.
you'll go to space.
Yeah, maybe. There's got to be somewhere I can hide. I don't know. But I don't think I'm as big a target as I was at one point. When I was all over TikTok and I was everywhere, TikTok's managed to get rid of me with a very sophisticated AI algorithms now. So I feel like they're going to allow me to live.
So we have that little back camera there.
Yeah.
The back of your head because your face is banned.
Well, my voice is banned.
We'll change it up a little bit.
Yeah, good. So change up the voice, don't show the face, and you should be okay.
We'll AI you to sound like Kamala Harris. They'll push it even further.
So I have to laugh more then. I have to speak in rhyme.
Yeah. You quoted Adolf Hitler a while back talking about Muslim soldiers being preferred in his army over Christian ones. The quote was, "It's been our misfortune to have the wrong religion. Why did it have to be Christianity with its meekness and flabbiness? Islam was a religion of men, and hygienic too. The soldiers of Islam received a warrior's heaven, a real earthly paradise with women and wine flowing." What do you make of this quote? And like, what does Islam kind of promise Muslim men that Christianity doesn't?
I have to be very careful how I answer this question. However, I do believe that Islam as a whole is a more patriarchal religion, and it creates a more patriarchal society. And he's right about it being a warrior's religion as well. That's true. I'm careful to talk about Islam because the beauty of Islam is its rigidness, the fact that it doesn't bend like Christianity does. But that also means when you talk about it, you have to get everything completely right all the time because you can get in trouble. But Christianity as a whole, I mean, even the idea of the Christian faith, the basis of it is to a degree sacrifice. And I love Western Christian nations and I love Christian society and I live in the West and I understand all of these things. I'm just talking about this from a philosophical standpoint. The idea of Christianity is turn the other cheek or die for yourself. Jesus died for our sins, so you sacrifice, you give things up, you give it away, or you accept bad things happening. And Islam isn't really like that. And I guess you can kind of apply that to how the two societies are now functioning. I mean, Christians are kind of like, it's all terrible, but it's going to be okay, or it's supposed to be terrible, or turn the other cheek. Or I have Christians who I live with who are very devout, who read the Bible every morning, and they're like, Jesus will fix it. Jesus is coming back. I'm like, okay, yeah, but your society is on fire right now. Don't you think it's your job to enforce the ideas and the morals and values of a Christian society now? But Jesus is coming back. Yeah, that's great. But don't you feel obligated to do anything now to keep the society Christian? And I feel like many Christians don't. Many Christians don't feel like it's their job to enforce Christian society, whereas I think many Muslims do. Muslims don't sit and say, God will fix it. They say, no, we want it to be an Islamic society now, and we will make sure it is. I feel like it's more proactive than Christianity. I don't know if that's just because Christianity is based on the ideals of, like we said, turn the other cheek and forgiving and forgive. Then you have to really analyze things, because then you have to sit and say, do I see the world the way I see it because of my religion? Do I see, like, people who are very forgiving, let's say, are Christian, and people who are perhaps less forgiving are Islamic, let's just say. Do they see the world that way because of their religion, or are they that religion because they already see the world that way? So it's like, which way round is it? And then you have to look into the depths of faith. You have to be very honest with yourself and say, is my faith determined by my absolute belief, or is my faith determined to a degree by my personality, because it's easy for me to be faithful in these tenets because of who I am? Or is it about God, or is it about who I am?
Many people, it's probably tradition.
Well, yeah, a lot of it
Not a lot of people switch.
Well, a lot of it's where I'm born.
Yeah.
Where you're born, the end. But if you want to seriously actually analyze your faith, you have to sit there and go, is it because I was born here and I was told I was this one? Is it because I've done research and I've chosen? And then if I've chosen, is it me choosing things I already agree with? Or is it because I believe? It's very interesting to actually go down that rabbit hole. But I don't know. Personally, I saw the Olympics and I went and protested in the name of Christianity. And I'd like to see Christians do a lot less cheek turning. You're out of cheeks. You have no cheeks left to turn. And your society is now being degraded, and your prophets are being mocked. And I think it's time to get back to, the crusading type of Christianity instead of the forgive everyone, Jesus will fix it type. Because the thing is, we can take it away from religion because it upsets everybody. But the truth is, if you have any idea on the planet and you don't defend it, the idea won't last. Victors write history and might makes right. And if you're going to allow yourself to be attacked and never ever reply, or never ever enforce any boundary, you're not going to have anything left at the end of it. It doesn't matter if it's 2 + 2 = 4. If you're not prepared to defend that idea, and the people who believe 2 + 2 = 5 are ready to kill over it, well, then you're going to lose the math is going to change.
Yeah.
That's the reality. So we have Western societies now where they're not prepared to defend Christianity at all. They're not reproducing or having children. And then they seem to think that it's all going to be okay in the end. Well, perhaps if Jesus comes back like you believe, it'll be okay. But if he doesn't, population dynamics ensure, along with the basic dynamics of how power works, you're going to be replaced. There's a huge power vacuum in the West. The reason Islam is growing in such strength is because most people in the West feel like they can either be Islamic or be gay because there's no other real power structures. Those are the only two ideals you can't criticize. You can criticize Christianity all day long. So
why do Muslims have so many children?
Well, I mean, we can talk about it being an Islamic thing, but also in many ways, it's not just an Islamic thing. It's a third world thing because a lot of Islamic countries are third world, but we can look at migrants even from South America, perhaps who are Christian, or from Africa, Christian nations still have a lot of children. There's a lot of African Christian migrants who come to the UK or come to the West and they outbreed the native populations. The reason for that is because the closer you are to survival, the closer you are to your gender roles. If you were to get 5 men, 5 women, strand them on an island, the men would go hunt and the women would collect berries. And, no one would be arguing about feminism. Everyone would be doing their job, what they're naturally inclined to do. So the closer you are to survival, the more difficult your life, the closer you are to gender roles, because gender roles give you the optimum chance of survival. So you have people who are from difficult parts of the world, irregardless of their religion, and they're close to their gender roles. And the female gender role is reproduction. A woman is supposed to have children. That's what her body is built to do. A man's body is built to work. That's why we're big with muscles. And a woman's body is built to have children. That's why she has a uterus. And that's why she has periods. That's what she's meant to do. So that's the basic gender role. And we've fallen away from that in the West to the point now where the native women of the West, they don't want to have kids. If they do want to have kids, they want to make sure that they already have a huge house and their husband has a whole bunch of money and they get to have a nanny and they get a professional photographer to photograph the kids for their Instagram page. And they're not interested in actually having a bunch of children. They're interested in all this other garbage instead. So, I mean, people have 1, maybe 2 kids. They don't have 6, 7, 8 like they used to.
Do you believe the purpose of a woman's life is to have children?
I think it's the most important thing she could do. I think it's the number one thing she'll be happy she did when she's older. But I also understand why women aren't having kids, because we're now living in a society where women are in so much constant competition, even for men. So you have women who are sitting there and they have a boyfriend, but they're like, oh, I've seen this love story on TikTok about this girl who got picked up on a private jet. That's never happened to me. My boyfriend can't afford a private jet. Do I really want to have kids with this guy, or do I want to hold out? Maybe I'll get one of those guys.
I've heard that exact conversation.
Well, there you go. So women are now holding out for this Disney fantasy bullshit. Then you end up in a society, which we're currently in, where 90% of the women are chasing 5% of the men. And then if they even do get one of those 5% men, then they start complaining that he's not loyal. Well, every chick in the world wants this guy. What do you expect him to do? Fall in love with just you? But you're going to tell him about your Twilight insights? Really? Oh, you're that special? No, you're not that special. You're a pretty young girl, like most of the pretty young girls are messaging. So everything's fucked up, right? And then women can either have the choice of having children with this man and being one of his many baby mothers, or they have to accept that they're not going to get perhaps the man they saw on TikTok or Instagram and have a kid with him, but then they're going to be resentful towards that man and not treat him the way he wants to be treated, which is going to not allow him to feel like king of the household, which means when COVID comes along, they're all going to end up wearing the mask and getting the fucking injection. Everything ties in together, how messed up it is. But yeah, things were much easier when the small town girl met a small town man and they had 6, 7 kids. That was society. Yeah. Family was society, but now that's gone. Women don't want to have children anymore. And I mean, you can look and say a man's job is to build. We're building more buildings than ever before. A man's done his job, but all the Western populations are declining because women are not doing their job, which is have children. You do not find women nowadays who are 21 and go, I'm 21, I need to start having kids because I need to have 8 kids. None. So then what's the answer? A government's answer is pretty simple. They're like, okay, our populations are declining. We'll just import people. Because from the macro, if you zoom out far enough, everything looks the same. We can see the difference between that cup and that bottle right there. We can. But if you view it from space, they're just 2 dots. So from the governmental level, they don't sit and think, this person from fucking Syria, Afghanistan, God knows where, isn't the same as the local people. They just think person. So go. We need more people. Women aren't having kids, bring people in. I mean, if you want to be a conspiracy theorist, you could argue that they're deliberately using feminism and LGBT to stop the native women from wanting to have children, because feminism prevents women from having children because, one, it makes them want to pursue other things, and two, it makes them unattractive to men, and it makes men not want to marry them because no man wants to marry a feminist. No man. And then also they use feminism to decrease masculinity, which then in turn does the opposite effect. No woman wants to marry a man who isn't masculine, so nobody's meeting up anymore. They're doing this to destroy the birth rates of the native populations because the native population has grown decadent and we expect holiday pay and safe working conditions. So they want to get rid of us and just replace us with third and second world slaves so they can make as much money as possible. That's a conspiracy theory, you could argue. But they certainly need people and we don't produce them. And if you say to the average woman, like, you know, what would it take for you to have a kid? Oh, I'd like a holiday home in this house. I need to live my life first. I want to finish my career. I want to have fun first. I haven't been here. I haven't been there. I need to go on holidays. Woman, your job is not to get bags and get Instagram likes and go on holidays. It's your job to have children. That's your job, you know? But women have forgotten that. They've been trained out of that. They've been psyoped out of that. It's all Sex in the City. Fuck everyone you can. You should have your own career. You should have your own money, blah, blah, blah. I was actually saying this last night. I have a Ferrari 812. In fact, I have 4 Ferrari 812 competitions. It's a $1.6 million car. I think it's the only one here in Romania. And I was talking to the girl I was with, and I was saying, the difference between the masculine and the feminine is so pertinent if you look at anything, because the masculine world is built on competence and the feminine world is based on being beautiful. I said, that is a $1.6 million Ferrari. I've never seen a woman get one via competence. I've never seen a woman go, become smart, and learn how to do something and make enough money to buy a $1.6 million Ferrari. Now, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying it's not been done. I haven't seen it. I said, as a man, you get a Ferrari via competence. You get to ride in a Ferrari because you're pretty. 98% of women in Ferraris got there because they were pretty. That's it. Not because they knew anything, not because they've done anything. They looked good. I would argue if you could get every woman who's ever been in a Ferrari ever, and you tick the ones who bought it themselves and tick the ones who got picked up by a guy because they were hot. 98% of chicks get the best things in life just by being hot. Yeah. Why does that matter? Well, primarily being hot means being fertile. That's what it's supposed to mean. That's just more proof that women are judged by their capability to have children. And it's subconscious, even for the men dating them who don't realize it. But we could tie this back into other things. We could tie into the idea that men don't want to have children because they're scared of the divorce courts, because the government's lost its mind, and there's a whole bunch of things. But we should be prioritizing family. Migrants and immigrants, and you talked about why Muslims have so many kids. Well, we can talk about it from the religious perspective, but especially in the third world perspective. The men have a bunch of kids because they ain't got nothing to take. Divorce court. I ain't got nothing to take. And the women have a bunch of kids because it's the society they grew up in. And people pretend, especially in the Western world, that they can't afford children. That's a joke. I mean, the poorest people in the world have kids. It's just they just prioritize other things. They prioritize Starbucks latte and Instagram likes. And it's the failure of society. It's really the failure of civilization when women don't want to have babies anymore.
Have you considered starting your own country?
Tristan kind of looked into it. Difficult thing with the country is, though, you need a military to defend it. I mean, let's
the war room.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we'd all go down in a blaze of glory. We do our best. You get a country, you get an island, you set it up, and then you just get invaded and taken to jail somewhere by whoever. You know, it's quite difficult to do. I'd like to think that America can fix itself, or that one Western country will come back to some degree of sanity. I'd like to really believe that, but we're gonna have to see how it all goes.
What should a country be optimizing for? Like, is it health, money, happiness? I know you said that individual happiness isn't really ideal to optimize for, but on a country scale, does it make sense?
It's a very good question, because once again, to answer it professionally, I have to... those things you just named, if a country optimizes for the happiness of its constituents, it will not be the most competitive country. If a country optimizes for the competitiveness of its constituents, it will not be the happiest country. But then are these two countries in competition? Because if they are, or most are, you should probably optimize for competitiveness, because otherwise you're going to have a very short-lived, happy country, which is eventually destroyed. It's kind of what's happening now, right? You have China, which is a collectivist society, and then we have America and these other countries, which are individualist. But collectivism is going to win in the long run, because all the ants work for the good of the ant farm, and they're prepared to sacrifice for themselves for the good of the ant farm. So in the end, collectivism is going to win. Now, you can sit and say life in China is no good because it's controlled. Well, that's true, but if they win and we lose, well, then life in China is better than being a loser, because your country's going to get wrecked. So it's very hard to say what a country should optimize for. And I guess that's the current and never-ending battle, right? Of a person who wants to live a good life and the government who wants what's good for the government. So what's good for the ant isn't always what's good for the ant farm. So you have to decide between these two things. And for that to work, I guess what happens is in Western countries, the people, the individuals need to have enough faith in their leaders and enough faith in their government to make a degree of personal sacrifice, which we no longer have, right? So maybe in the days of old, you could say, look, we're going to raise taxes because we're going to build the military. And most Americans would say, okay, I accept and understand that because I believe in my government. I believe in my military. I believe that my government does not waste money. I believe that the wars we get in are just and essential for our defense. I believe this is a good thing. We no longer have that in the West. Now, everybody hates the government because we know they're incompetent cowards and liars and they betray us. So we only want what's good for us. We don't want anything that's good for government. But then how can our government compete with other world governments if they don't have any true control of the population, if they can't do a draft or they can't control no one listens to them or no one wants to pay the taxes to them? It's all a mess. It's difficult. What China has, it has collectivism, but people believe in the leader. So they're like, this may be bad for me, but it's good for China, and I believe in the leader of China.
Would you ever optimize for health?
Well,
that's what you optimize for on a personal level. Like that's the first thing you tell people to do, get in shape.
Yeah, I mean, but then it all goes together, right? Because you optimize for health, which is good for the ant, but is that truly good for the ant farm? How can you mine? How can you get natural resources? How can you generate power? How can you do all these things if your primary concern is health of your people? Then you only care about clean air, X, Y, Z. Everything's in balance. Because if you only optimize for health,
you get invaded.
Lose.
Yeah.
You're going to lose. And unfortunately, the bottom line of all things, as we discussed earlier, is violence. So perhaps you need to optimize for the capability to be violent. Because perhaps that allows you to then get everything else, which is what the Americans do, by the way. America is the world's largest superpower because it has the world's largest army. So, I mean, they could mine for cobalt, or they could just overthrow a government and take their cobalt, which is what they effectively do with the American dollar and military groups and sponsoring terrorism and the army. So if you optimize for violence, you can probably fix most of your problems via violence. If you optimize for health, it's hard to fix any other problem. And I really, truly believe that if you ever have anything, people are going to come and try and take it, which is why they put me in jail in the first place. I have influence and they want to take it off me. So if you're going to build a country, it's either going to be insignificant, nobody's going to care about it, or you're going to end up having things people want, and then you're going to wish you were good at violence because they're going to come and take it. So perhaps if I had a country, it would be a lot like Sparta, and we would optimize for violence. Because once that's done and we're secure, then we consider other things. But I think if you don't have the capability to defend yourself, you're not going to have very much for very long anyway.
Who do you think was the greatest emperor? Genghis Khan, Caesar, Alexander the Great, or Napoleon?
It's a really good question. I think Genghis had the largest empire, didn't he? He did well. I'm a fan of Napoleon as well. I like Napoleon. I was very disappointed by that latest movie where they just made him some simp. I was like, bro, like, is that what this movie's about? It's Napoleon simping. Not the battles of Waterloo or anything. Not all of his amazing achievements. No, just simping. Let's just make a simp video. They just take every hero and try and destroy him in popular culture. It's truly sad. It's hard to compare them all because they're at different periods of history and they achieve different amazing things. But I guess they all had one thing in common. And it's the mark of all great men since the beginning of time, which ties back into what I was saying earlier about my woman saying to me, why do I still work? Is that they were never satisfied. I mean, Genghis Khan had the largest empire ever. He still wanted more to the day he died. I think the most successful men on the planet are insatiable. So they had insatiability, which I think if you're prepared to work for the things you want, as opposed to steal, insatiability is a virtue in men. The greatest men of history were all insatiable people. So, and we remember them, which is what matters, right? What's the point in living a life as a man to be forgotten? And most 99.9% of people lived and died and were forgotten. So the fact we're still mentioning them, I mean, they're all successful, to be fair.
This is kind of random, but a trait that was noticed among like some of the highest performing men of all time, like Steve Jobs and some of these emperors mentioned, was that they were light eaters. Are you a light eater naturally?
I'm a super light eater.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, but
it's because I think your focus is so on your mission that you kind of forget about food.
Yeah, I think you're just the kind of person who doesn't value comfort in general, right? And what is eating? I mean, what is eating excessively? You eat to stay alive, of course. You're a light eater. But if you're going to eat excessively, you're going to be tired and you're going to be full, and you like the idea and the feeling of comfort, and you like the feeling of, you know, feeling full, I guess, in itself is a comforting thing. If you're used to the idea of adversity, then you're not going to be interested in just eating until you're comfortable all the time.
For young men,
I think it's just a comfort-discomfort dynamic.
Would you recommend fasting for young men?
I eat once a day. When I was younger, I used to eat more, but I'm old now. How old are you?
23.
Oh,
yeah.
bro. When I was your age, I could eat whatever I wanted. I know I'm starting to sound old now, but past 30, you actually have to eat a lot less. But I think feeling hungry is a good thing. Yeah, I think being hungry puts you in a state of mind where you struggle to sit still, and you'll get things done, and you can put that energy into you can put that in an effective manner. I mean, what is hungry? Once again, I need food. Listen, you can go 8 weeks without food. We ate 2 hours ago. What do you mean you need to eat? I think it's just the mindset of it. I think fasting is good for you, and there's a whole bunch of medical and health reasons for that, but a lot of it's the mindset. If you're a full-grown man and you're hungry and you're having a panic attack because you can't get hold of some food for an hour, then you're a dipshit. Then you're never going to be able to deal with any of life's genuine struggles. Like, you're hungry, shut up. Don't even mention it. Why even tell anyone? I've always found that amazing that people tell people. You're sitting around people like, man, I'm so hungry. What do you want, therapy? I mean, there's no food here. Like, shut up until there's food around, or go get something. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's just a degree of broadcasting weakness. Like, I need to eat. I'm hungry. I need to eat. I'm hungry. What are you, a baby? That's what babies cry for food. Like, to me, it's also gay. It's just gay. If you're hungry, just shut up and eat. And you could eat in 2 days from now. You'd be perfectly fine.
Do you think crying is signaling?
Yeah, I think crying.
Like, it's like an ask for help.
Yeah, well, I mean, babies cry because they want attention, and women cry because they want attention. And I don't know why men cry as much. Women cry to try and manipulate you primarily. I think men probably do it for the same reason. You're trying to elicit sympathy. But I think men cry a lot less often than women because we understand that sympathy is a lot harder to come by. It doesn't work. So
and no one's coming to save you.
No one's coming to save you. So, I mean, if crying worked as well for men as it does for women, men might cry more often, but it doesn't work very well. So most men don't bother with it. But women get to cry, and they can elicit sympathy all the time. Female crying is a superpower, right? If a woman attacks you and hits you and you don't touch her and the cops turn up and she's crying, you're getting arrested.
Yeah.
So it's just the way it works, right? But if the man was crying, they'd be like, weird, unstable, arrest him. You get arrested anyway. We're more likely to get arrested if you're crying.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's strange. I think there must be some human psychology. There must be some study somewhere that explains why people cry and why it's done. But I think to a degree it's to elicit sympathy. But I don't operate from that frame. I've never wanted people to feel sorry for me. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me for anything that's happening to me. I put myself in this position. I decided to do it all. I could have shut up. I could have took the 50 mil. A lot of things I could have done. I didn't do it. I'm here because I wanted to be, because I'm a full-grown man. It's my decisions, and I'm prepared to deal with the good and the bad that come with all of them. There's no light without dark, and I do not want people's sympathy. People can understand it's unjust. People can feel angered at the injustice, and that's a very masculine response, but I don't need sympathy from anybody.
Back to the country thing. You're basically a global citizen. You're a mixed race man, Muslim. Are you pro segregation or separatism?
Yes, because I feel like the beauty of cultures are lost when they're all separated. If you have coffee and orange juice and apple juice, they all have unique characteristics and taste good. If you mix them all together, you have nothing. So I think that the beauty of cultures are seen in their separateness, right? The fact that Japan is so amazing to visit is because it's Japanese, right? In 100 years, when it's full of everybody, it won't be Japanese anymore. Then going to Japan would be the same as going to any other Western city, and that destroys the point in traveling at all. I also think that a lot of people, I mean, the most homogenous societies typically are the safest. Not everybody is smart, and not everybody is calm or sane. And perhaps you need as many things as possible to try and hold the fabric of society together. We talked about thin cultures and thick cultures. Perhaps the thicker a culture, just the better it is, considering at least 50% of the people you walk past are below average intelligence. There's a whole bunch of dumb people out there, and perhaps it's easy for the world to get along if these dumb people look around and go, Well, everyone else is like me and I'm like them, and I don't want to hurt them because they're like me, and we all think the same, and we're the same people, and there's some unifying factor. There's very little unifying in the West. We keep talking about how diversity is a strength, multiculturalism is a strength, and diversity is a strength. Is it? I don't know. Is it? I mean, there are some countries that have managed to do it. Dubai has managed to be massively successful with an 80% immigration rate from all different cultures, but it's one city. It's not a country.
And they kick you out if you do anything bad.
And the legal system's a different level, right? So they'll, like, if Nigerians start committing crime, if there's 2 big crimes committed by Nigerian men, they'll kick out all the Nigerians, and they'll take the visas from all of them. They'll say no Nigerians can come for 2 years. America can't do that. America can't say one Chinese man committed a crime, so we're stopping visas from China. So
who do you see as American? Because you, Trump,
who do Americans see as American?
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, right? So when we had orange juice and apple juice and coffee, and now what do we have? I don't know. What is an American? Is an American someone who sneaks across the border and is just born there? Is that an American? If you're not going to divide the country by race or ethnicity or religion or language, like most countries do. Like if I go to China with my wife and we have a kid, no one in China is calling that kid Chinese. No one's going to say, that's a Chinese child that was born here. Nobody. If we're going to do that in the West, well, there's very important things we must do. First, we have to ensure everybody's treated fairly under the law, which is the thing that England's already lost, because you have a two-tiered system inside of a multi-ethnic democracy. That's a big problem. But secondly, you need to have something that unifies people, even if it's just respect and love for the flag. If they're not going to be unified by ethnicity or language, or even a version of history, right? Because the version of history a Mexican person believes and understands about Mexico and America and the war that happened and all these things is very different than the version of history the American believes. If you're not going to have any of these unifying factors, culture, songs, anything, you need to at least be unified by love for the country, at least. And one of the things Dubai has is that everyone feels blessed and lucky to be in Dubai, and they don't want to leave. Whereas there's a lot of people in America who don't really feel that way anymore, and they don't love America. So what makes an American is someone who loves America. But then, once again, we've now entered the post-truth world where everything's subjective. So what does love for America mean? Because the left believe they love America as they burn it down. And the right believe they love America as they try and preserve things. I agree with the right personally, but the people on the left go, no, I love America too much to let it be racist. So, like, once again, what is love? It's subjectiveness. We don't have any unifying factors. There's nothing that unifies people anymore. So what is an American is becoming more and more difficult to answer. It's not the passport. It's not a skin color. It's not a language. It's not a religion. And then I would say it's love for America, but even that's becoming damaged. At this point now, what is an American? I'd say a Trump voter. If you're not voting for Trump, you're not an American. That's how I now view it. But Trump won't be around forever. What comes after that? I'm not sure.
Do you believe women should have the right to vote?
You know, as a world-famous misogynist,
it would only be fitting
for me to say no. Well, what is a vote? Like, what is a vote? Why do you think votes happen?
To ensure that certain ideals get in place.
Well, what is a vote replacement for? A vote is a replacement for a war, right? So the leader died. Who's going to be the new leader? Well, I'll get my guns and you'll get your guns and we'll fight and we'll see who the new leader is. But wars create a lot of bodies and wars are very expensive. And if you needed to have a war every time someone died, you wouldn't get very far as a country because you'd have constant and endless destruction, right? So a vote is a replacement for a war, effectively. And in the voting system, there's going to be a large percentage of people who are going to be unhappy with the result, but you accept the result because it was fair, supposedly. But that's no longer fair. So why should anyone accept getting a result they don't like if it wasn't fair? Which is very important. But what's really interesting is that voting was supposed to be a replacement for war. But now we have two very distinct teams. You have a team of masculine men and feminine women versus masculine women and feminine men. So you have two teams. You have the right and the left. But if it was a war, the right would clearly win. So are votes now still a fair representation of war or replacement for war, where if it was a war, the right would clearly win the war? So is the voting system even still applicable for what it's supposed to be? I mean,
Should we have any voter regulations in
Well,
place?
I mean, also my view, to be honest with you, actually, is that the people who should be able to vote are the people who, I would say, landowning males or tax-paying males, typically, or you could say tax-paying citizens. You should be having to do something to get a vote, right? I don't
Like a minimum amount of taxes, you think?
Yeah,
Or
just contribute to the system, at least. If you're a tax-paying adult, let's say, you should be able to vote. I won't say women can't vote.
yeah.
But the fact that women can vote and affect something like a war where only men go die, I think is very sad. And they'll say, not only men die, women are in the military. Only men die in wars. At battle. Percentage-wise, it's 99%, 98% men. I'm not sure. But then I mean, you can go into it from a psychological aspect. If women are easier to psyop, do you want them voting? I mean, we can argue that females are easier to psyop than men because they don't have the physical propensity for violence, so they can't defend their ideals. So women are easier to psyop. Do you want them voting when a foreign nation or a foreign government can subvert their mind? I mean, if they respect their husband, they can't. But if they're watching TV all day, women either belong to their husband's ideals or societal's ideals. They don't develop their own. They either follow their husband or they follow Sex and the City, one of the two. Like, do you want a large contingent of voters who can be psyoped? I don't know. Do you? Well, if you want a very fair and if you want a very fair country and a very fair democracy, perhaps you don't want that. But if you don't want it to be fair, if you want to be able to put something on the news that Trump is a racist and convince half the population that he's somehow a bad person, even though he hung around with rappers every single day until he ran for president and was never called racist ever, and you want them to vote a certain way, well, then you do want a certain contingent psyopable. I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to answer. Should women be able to vote? A lot of the problems we are facing would go away if women weren't voting. I'll say that. A lot of the issues that the Western world is currently dealing with wouldn't exist if women weren't voting.
Many women would claim it's unfair representation that they can't vote, especially when there's legal statutes relating to abortion, for instance. And I know you probably are under the assumption that abortion isn't just a female issue. I think that's very fair. But on birth control and abortion, I'm curious, do the women you date take birth control?
Well, the thing is about the abortion argument, the thing that's so interesting about the abortion argument is that not getting pregnant is very preventable. I don't see what this obsession with abortion is, because not getting pregnant is extremely avoidable. There's contraception for both genders. You could track your cycle or whatever. There's a whole bunch of ways you can make sure you don't get pregnant. The fact that you need option number 9, the most gruesome and morally repugnant option to ensure you don't have a child, and that option number 9 is so important to you, just shows a lack of maturity and planning in general. That's the first thing. Second thing, when they say, oh yeah, but women should have rights to vote for what happens to our bodies, that's not a female argument. Like, a lot of things happen to men bodies too. A lot of things happen to human bodies I mean, men get sent to war to die. Like, what are you talking about? And the last point about this whole abortion argument, which I don't think it has anything to do with killing children, really. Because they talk about, what if you were raped? Okay, yeah, but exceptions don't disprove the rule.
Yeah,
0.1%. Yeah, let's stop talking about stupid shit. It's an emotional argument they use to rile women up, to control them, which actually ties back into what I just said earlier about psyoping. They are psyopable. If you want an abortion, you're not going to be able to get an abortion. They're trying to control your bodies. They're going to take your freedom away. And women are sitting there believing the psyop. And like I said, they're voting for a candidate, ignoring all the important issues I named earlier, World War III, inflation, crime rate, etc., because they feel like, my body, my choice. I'm going to be a slave. You shouldn't want an abortion. And it's easy to avoid an abortion.
Would you ever have an abortion?
I would never allow any woman I ever dated to have an abortion, ever. But the fact that women won't sit there and go, okay, yeah, but I won't have an abortion. I don't want one. And I'll never put myself in a position where I need to get one, because that doesn't sound very nice to do. Like, it's all just a psyop. It's all just emotional control. The reason the American election is probably the only one in the world where abortion is even mentioned. Even in other Western countries, they don't do this. In England and France, they don't talk about abortion.
Do the women you date take birth control?
No, they don't. And the birth control argument, I don't know actually very much about, but I have seen a lot of studies as of late about why it's very bad for women, and it can be very bad for them. And I've been lucky, I guess. The women I know don't take it. Perhaps that's why I like them. Perhaps that's why they're not crazy. I don't know. But I know it's supposed to mess with you hormonally very badly. But I just find it crazy that they can pull out this abortion card and use it to rile up women and psyop them into voting for a country's demise anytime they want. I guess that proves, I mean, perhaps the abortion argument in and of itself is an argument for why women shouldn't vote. They can pull up a stupid subject and they can psyop you into voting for the country's demise for a procedure you should never want, which is perfectly avoidable, which you probably won't even need. You will still vote for the country's demise if they say the right words and get you emotionally invested because you are so weak you can be psyoped into destroying society. Maybe that's proof in and of itself that women shouldn't vote at all.
This is a little more lighthearted, but what's the most aggressive thing a woman's done to gain your attention?
I've had stalkers, yeah. But my brother has a stalker right now, but she's unbeatable. She's the best of the best. She's the best of the best. But I'll let him talk about that.
I'll ask him about that.
Yeah, I've had stalkers. And you know what? Having a stalker, even me as a full-grown man, I very much sympathize for any woman that has a stalker because it even makes me nervous. When someone is everywhere you go or trying to turn up everywhere you are, even me as a man and her as a little girl, it's weird. So
Pretty much every girl I've dated, I feel like, has had a stalker. Is that the case with you?
Well, yeah, it's super common and it must be extremely intimidating.
Especially for social media.
Yeah,
girls,
yeah, it must be very intimidating. So I've had a stalker. I get love letters all the time. I have girls turn up at the house randomly. I get presents all the time. I had women trying to send voodoo magic or gypsy magic to make me fall in love with them.
Did it work?
No, it was funny because this girl who I kind of knew I went on a few dates with, but I wasn't that interested in, she promised to cook me some food. And she's a gypsy, like Romania has a gypsy population. And my house cleaner's a gypsy as well. And she sent me this food and it came with like a toy knight and some writing I didn't understand and a toy soldier and a bunch of crap. And anyway, I'm just eating the food. And my house cleaner goes, don't eat that. I was like, why? She goes, this is gypsy magic. This means this. This means this. She's trying to make you fall in love with her. This means this. And she's put a spell on the food. Don't eat it. I was like, whatever. So I just ate the food. But then for the following months, I pretended to the girl that I was falling in love with her. So I was like, I can't sleep anymore. Something's happening. You're all I think about. So I played along and she kept sending me food with different trinkets. I was eating good every single dinner time for about 3 months. I was getting food with different trinkets and I was pretending to fall more and more in love with her. And this is before I was arrested. Then I think I went away. I think I went on holiday somewhere or I had some work to do. And for 2 weeks, I didn't message her at all. And I think she realized I was just making fun of her. But yeah, that was fun.
Is there a specific type of woman you seem to attract? Maybe not just gypsies.
Yeah. She was a pretty gypsy. I mean, nothing against gypsies. She's very pretty. But yeah, I get endless love letters. I mean, if you ever want to get a lot of women, just become a famous human trafficker. They seem to like that one, human trafficker. Well, I mean, it's unfair for me to say, right? Because I'm very well known and I'm known for having money. So women message me and go, I love your videos. I love the things you say. You're so smart. And I kind of think, well, yeah, that's true. I am smart. And yeah, I understand you like what I say, but I am also extremely wealthy and very well known. So it's like, how much is real? What is love? Let's get philosophical. What is love? What is attraction? Right? If I'm with a woman, they'll say, she's only with you for money. And then they'll say to me, you're only with her because she's beautiful. And I'm like, okay, well, if she's only with me for my money and I get to take care of her and I get to afford her a perfect life and she has no stress and no worries and she gets to spend all her time doing things she likes, and I'm only with her because she's gorgeous and beautiful and does everything I say, is that real love or is that fake love? You know, often what starts as fake love ends up real love. You see like a young, hot 22-year-old Ukrainian model with some old rich man and you're like, she's only with him for money. Well, probably on the first date, but after she starts living a certain lifestyle and getting handbags and taken care of and her family at home get to eat and she hasn't got to work anymore and she has no stresses and she gets to go out on the boat every day, it ends up being real love. Like that's just how it works. So
money isn't that superficial either. I mean, it's often a symptom of many other characteristics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you have money, you're often good at other things. You're competent. And love grows from superficial things. Like a man falls in love with a woman initially because of how she looks. How she looks and she does as he says. That's enough for a man to love her and fix her problems and give her a nice life is enough for a woman to love a man. Women fall in love with the lifestyle and then they fall in love with the man by extension. So what is love? A lot of it is superficial and none of it is People think this idea of true love is that it's based on nothing, right? If it's true love, it doesn't matter. Well, then so what? True love is that I can stop speaking, I can become a mute, and I can become obese, and I can have no money, and I can put in no effort at all. And
Takes away power from you.
Yeah, and I can just sit there as a blob, and my woman's going to love me anyway. And I don't think so. I think she should say, no, you're a man.
You don't want a woman who wants that.
Of course, exactly. A woman has expectations of me, and I have expectations of her, and love is conditional. And it's built on certain things. So, yeah. It's kind of funny. People say, women only love you for money. I'm like, well, that's maybe true, but it's real love in a way, you know?
Andrew, have you ever been brutally rejected by a woman?
Not in modern history, not in recent history, but I think back before I was deleted on Instagram or when I was first famous, you have to be careful when you talk to anybody because a girl has a decision when she speaks to you. There's two ways she can get clout. She can get clout by being with you or trying to reject you. So like they can play that game, which is interesting. But I've retired from all these things now. Like I've settled down and I'm done with talking to girls. Like I get thousands of love letters a month and I ignore them all. They could be agents of the Matrix, right? Because we've seen 2 agents have already caused all this mess so far, and women are the easiest way to infiltrate a man's inner circle. Women are agents of the Matrix. Women are your number one liability as a man. If I want to, be careful what I say because I've got criminal cases, but I'll say it. If I wanted to kill someone, right, and he knew I wanted to kill him, he wouldn't have his location on Instagram where he is at the time, but the girl he's dating would, because they care more about those Instagram likes than anything else. He will take some girl on a date to a nice restaurant, and she'll be like, oh, and the plate will have the name, and that's the end of the game, right? The police do it too, whether it's the gangsters and the criminal or the mafia or the police. If they want to get a man, they watch the women because women have no OPSEC. They have no operational control. They don't pay attention to anything. They don't think in that frame. And even if they do, they care more about their likes than anything else. It's all about Instagram. You have to show it on Instagram. You can't take a girl. You say to a girl, I'm going to take you to the best place on the planet, but you can't put it on Instagram. She's like, why? She instantly like, what? I can't show everyone that I went? She doesn't care about going.
That's a big test of mine. I'm like, do you pull out your phone when this certain dessert comes out? You know,
Yeah.
It's like, that's very concerning.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're just trying to solicit attention from the universe, which means they're also going to solicit male attention. And it also means they enjoy attention. If they enjoy male attention, it's a problem. But, yeah, so women are a massive liability. For me to meet a new woman, I'd have to assume she's not an agent of the Matrix, and then I'd have to train her up operational security-wise, and I'd have to make sure that she doesn't do anything stupid or say anything stupid or get bitter if I don't do what she wants or betray me later down the line. If I meet a new woman now, how do I know I can trust her in a police interview 3 months from now if she gets arrested? Like, it's easier. I just don't talk to any girls anymore. I've got my wives. I'm settled down. I've got the ones I trust, and I'm done with all the new ones because it's just a headache and a nightmare.
What made you realize a girl wasn't the one? I know you don't really believe in the one, but wasn't the one for you?
It's a good question. What made me realize a girl wasn't the one for me? I don't think I've ever had that realization. I don't think I've ever woken up because if I've ever gotten far enough for the girl to believe she's the one, I was prudent and diligent enough to make sure that there was nothing glaringly obvious. However, I will say that at a certain age, and my age is 37, you do realize that on some level, it's going to sound bad. I don't mean this in a horrible way. I mean this in a positive way. On some level, everyone's replaceable. No matter how in love you are with a woman and you break up with them and you feel like you'll never get over them, yeah, you will. You know you will. And you'll find someone else who's quite different but has things you like more than you liked the one before. And you do get to a certain point where you realize that no one can break you if they leave because someone else will come and it will be fine.
What does heartbreak teach you?
Well, heartbreak teaches you primarily, I think as a man, heartbreak is designed to teach you your inadequacies. Because you do get to a certain echelon as a man where women will never leave you. That does exist. There is this magical land you get to where a woman can be like, I hate you so much and all you do is cheat on me and you never even see me and I hate you so much, I love you. Because there's nowhere else to go because they don't want to go down. So at the top of the mountain, it's very difficult for them to degrade. They get there and you do get to that level. So perhaps,
When's the last time a woman's left you? Has it been years?
Yeah, I have women who I perhaps haven't even seen in years who are still messaging me every day. You know,
They came back.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, but then what is a relationship? This is, again, you get into everything gets confusing at a certain point. because people will say, "Are you with her?" I'm like, I don't know. Am I? She's still texting me all the time. I reply sometimes. She'll do anything I want if I want her to. I don't want to see her. She has no one else. I have everyone else. Are we together? Probably. Yes. No. It's all confusing, right? But in the normie world, I guess, in outside of global fame and all this insanity, in the normie world, I think Heartbreak is designed to teach you lessons. I think everything bad that happens to you as a man is designed to teach you lessons. I think that's why God gives them to you. You're never going to be a good man unless you've suffered. Good men have been through a lot of bad things, and you have to realize why she left or why your heart is broken so that you can change certain things and grow. This is why God puts you in jail or allows you to lose a loved one or a heartbreak or a car crash, anything else. If you're an intelligent person and you crash your car, you sit and say, how did this happen? Was I driving too fast? No. Whose fault was it? Well, an amateur will say, it's their fault. They came speeding out at me. But a professional will say, no, they came speeding out at me. Why couldn't I avoid them? Why couldn't I move? Why didn't I see it? Why am I on this road in the first place? Like a professional analyzes everything from a position of what they could do about it, having control over all things. And it's the same with heartbreak. If you ask an amateur why his heart's broken, well, she left me because of blah, blah, and he'll just blame her like a dumbass. She's arrogant. She doesn't listen to me. Her friends convinced her to cheat. She wants this, that, instead of saying, I don't have what it takes to keep her. I don't have what it takes to talk in a way that makes her not want to listen to her friends. I'm not important. So if you self-analyze everything, then everything happens for the same reason. No matter what bad thing happens to you, including heartbreak, it all happens for the same reason, for you to analyze and get feedback.
I don't know if this is your quote, but I remember it from years back. It's like, if you were richer and more jacked, she wouldn't have left you.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think that's usually the case?
Well, I mean, you can use, it's hyperbole, but it's a basic version that you could apply. Yeah, sure. If you were more important and more successful, she was less likely to leave you. That's the truth. The thing about life is you become a better person via feedback. You don't ever become a better person via anything else, especially not practice. People say practice makes perfect, and that's the biggest mistake because it's not true. Because I often get asked, Andrew, how do you speak the way you speak? And I say, well, feedback. And they say, well, you've practiced, right? Well, everyone practices how to talk. There's people who've been alive 30 years longer than me, who've been practicing to speak longer than I have, who don't speak the way I speak, for example. It's just an example. You have to feedback. You have to watch yourself talk. You have to see where you've made mistakes. You have to see where you say, like a dumbass. You have to remove it consciously. You need feedback to improve. So if a woman left you, that's feedback. Learn the lessons and make sure it doesn't happen again. Or sit and blame her and pretend it's nothing to do with you and then wait for it to happen to you again because it will. That's how life works. Like feedback I got from jail or my father dying or heartbreak or being stabbed or whatever it is, all of these things happen for you to learn from them. And everybody in life has these events and everybody in life has these traumas they can learn from, but most people are too stupid or too arrogant or too cowardly to sit down, blame themselves, look in the mirror, analyze the entire situation as if it was their fault and see what they can do to prevent it from happening again. If I get wet in the rain, I blame myself. Why didn't I bring an umbrella? Why was I outside? Why was the car not nearer? Why didn't I check the weather? It's all me. Whereas the average person goes, why are you wet? It rained. And it's not their fault because the sky rains. It's not my fault. I can't stop the sky raining. Whereas I believe I could have stopped myself getting wet even if I can't stop the rain. It's a mentality.
If you were born a woman, would you still have the same vision and dedicate your life to spreading the same message?
I actually think I have no idea what I'd do if I was born a woman because I think that'd be a dire existence, but that's from the masculine frame because I want to build an empire. And as a woman, if I still thought like that, that would make me a very predatory woman. I'd be dangerous if I was a beautiful woman and I thought like me.
Cleopatra, yeah.
Yeah, if I thought like me. But I wouldn't think like me because I'd be a woman. I think the best thing you can do as a woman is have a bunch of children. I think it's the best thing you can do is have a bunch of children. I think it's also one of the best things you can do as a man. But as a man, you have to protect and provide for those children so you have other pursuits, right? As a man, you don't want to have a bunch of children and not be able to give them a good life. But as a woman, you could find the right man and you can have a bunch of children and he can make sure of them they have a good life. And I think that's the most important thing you can do. I think that's what a female's empire is family. So I think if I was a woman, I'd be prioritizing. I mean, but then once again, let's be honest. All the things I talked about, how and why society's damaged and how women are chasing the top 5% of men and all these things. If I was a woman, would I be a gold digger? Gold digger. Probably. Yeah. Probably. Yeah. I mean, like, I want a good life. Like, that's how the world works. So interesting. It's really interesting for me as a thought experiment. I can't imagine the female me, but if she was anything like me as a man, she'd be dangerous. That's for sure.
What does a man learn from life about women, and what does he need to learn himself?
Women teach you a lot about how to get women, which is actually quite interesting. Like,
Very true.
they do. Women teach you a lot about how to get women themselves. If you want to piss a woman off, ignore her. Don't insult her. Just don't reply. And you should know that, because when did a woman annoy you most? When she ignored you. That's right. So, like, you can learn so much from them. But women are the prize, effectively. Sexual access, or access to sexuality, has always been a prize for men that effectively had to be earned. You had to go to war and come back with a Valor Star, or you had to be a king or something to get access to sexuality. So women were the prize up until a certain point, and then if you're a high value enough man, you can say you become the prize, blah, blah. But effectively, women are a fantastic mirror, and how women treat you tell you a lot about yourself, because women are ruthless. And if they don't see value in you, or if they don't see value they can extract from you, you're invisible to them. You know, you can go to a nice restaurant with a girl, and you can say, how many men are in here? And she'll say, 3 or 4. And she'll ignore every waiter.
I heard you say this, and I tried it, and they all said 2, 3.
Yeah. The
And I was
waiters
like,
don't exist.
There were like hundreds of men in here. What do you
Waiters
mean?
don't exist in their
Yeah.
mind. If they can't get something from you, you're invisible. So how women treat you in general is a good mark for how much value you openly exude. If they can instantly see value on you, they'll talk to you and treat you a certain way. People think that beautiful women are really bitchy and rude. No, they're not. They're actually very nice and soft and sweet. They're actually quite shy and insecure if you're that guy. But if you're not that guy, they're like, get the fuck away from me. Because they don't even want to bother having a conversation on any level because you don't exude enough value. So women are a mirror. They'll tell you everything you need to know about yourself. And you should pay attention to it, and you should change it, and you should fix it. Instead of
What can you only learn by yourself?
Well, I mean, I think the world's going to constantly and endlessly give you feedback. It doesn't, I mean, women are a fantastic mirror, and there's no point in getting mad at the mirror, but I guess to a degree, the whole world is a mirror on some level. And I think that the thing that people struggle with most, especially men, is that we only learn lessons the hard way. That's the problem. You want to be good at learning lessons the easy way, which is really paying attention and making sure the feedback you're receiving, you need to be perceptive to it so that it doesn't have to be so hard hitting. You need to be the kind of person who goes out for a drive and his wheels slide a bit and he slows down. But what people typically do is they go out for a drive, their wheels slide a little bit, they continue, and then they crash. And then they realize I should have slowed down once they hit a tree. They only learn the hard way. But when they got the easy little bits of feedback, they didn't want to pay attention to them because it was easy and they thought they got away with it. And it's the same with a relationship and the same with everything else. There's little bits of feedback. You go, okay, this is going to be a problem later on if I continue. But they ignore that part. They wait for it all to blow up and go wrong. And then they learn. So men only learn the hard way. And I guess you can speed things up if you try and learn the easy way. But sooner or later, hard things are going to happen anyway. God's going to make sure of that. So you're never going to be able to avoid that car crash one way or another. Something's going to happen and it's going to hit you. And then it's your chance to prove to God you are the person you say you are, and to just be cerebral enough about things to understand that everything comes to an end one day unless you die. And if you die, then it doesn't matter anymore. So, it doesn't, they can throw you in solitary confinement. It's going to end one day, or you're going to die. And when you die, it doesn't matter anymore. So there's no point in being completely distraught about it. You have to find the joy in the crack in the sunlight through the roof, and that's life. What else can you do?
Andrew, your bond with your brother Tristan is evident. What moment solidified your relationship with Tristan?
Oh, we've always been like this. I can't remember us ever not being like this. So it's difficult. Every single day solidifies that. It's hard for me to even say. We're a team. We'll always be a team. And I think that's what brothers are supposed to be. I find it strange when brothers aren't a team. And if you're not a team with your brother, there's something that's in the way of that most often, whether it's egos, which have been, a lot of people have outside influences, or they have egos, which perhaps the matrix is injecting into them. Perhaps there's something outside there in the world or the universe that's convincing you that your ego or XYZ is more important than your own brother. Females are another thing. People fall in love with their woman or their wife, and their wife's like, I want you to live with me. I don't want you to be with him all the time. Come be with me. Females are another thing. But if you're not very close with your brother, something's in the way, so you should find out what that is. And you should then, once again, analyze, is that thing worth more than your relationship with your brother? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But in our case, our brotherhood's always come first. So we never had money in the way or jobs in the way because we always worked together. We never had women in the way because we always lived together, and the women had to come and join our household as opposed to us go and make a household with the girl. It was always us two as a team. And we've always been able to rely on each other. And I know that that is a massive source of strength. But it seems very rare. I was surprised by how rare that was until I became famous. And then people are like, where's the other brothers at? But interesting.
It's often said that a true friend is someone who sees the pain in your eyes when everyone else sees a smile. What does Tristan and your other close friends notice about you that the world doesn't see?
I think a true friend is someone who expects the best from you, to be honest. I think that masculine bullying, I think that the masculine realm of bullying is actually very, very powerful. I think that a true friend expects the best of you. I think if I were to go home right now and say I'm too sad to work, everyone would call me a dickhead. And they'd be like, stop being a faggot. Like, that's how, like, what do you mean you're too tired to work? What are you talking about? I think that peer pressure and camaraderie that comes with the masculine world, a lot of it can be delivered in a non-PC way, but that's actually the power of it. So I expect my friends to hold me to a high regard as opposed to see pain in me. If they do see pain, I expect them to help me get through it. That's what I expect a friend to see more than anything else.
Did they see anything right now?
No,
They're struggling with?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that, or if they do, then, I mean, we're all busy getting things done and we all expect the best of each other. I would never have friends who don't do what they're supposed to do. It's just the way we are. We're a group of people. We're all competent people and we do what we're supposed to do. And if there was one person who continually failed, they wouldn't be our friend very long because we wouldn't have any shared values. And irregardless of how I feel, I have things I'm supposed to do and they must be done, whether I'm happy or sad. So how important really is it? If I wake up sad or I wake up happy or I wake up angry, I have the same schedule for the day. So it doesn't matter if I came and sat in this chair, happy, sad, angry, whatever. The podcast is going to happen. I'm going to do the podcast. I just don't understand the importance we put on feelings. Again, was never something. I mean, this is a modern phenomenon, right? Men had duty and honor, and how they felt was not to be taken into consideration because they had things they were supposed to do. Now, once again, everything's become subjective. Perhaps we're highlighting the importance of feelings amongst men because one, we're trying to feminize them, and two, we're trying to make everything subjective once again. Oh, he doesn't go to the gym because of XYZ, or he feels down, or he's depressed, or he has ADHD, or whatever fucking garbage to come up with. That's fine, but he needs to go to the gym. So we can talk about all the reasons he doesn't go forever. That's a very long, lifelong conversation, but he needs to go. So we've removed the needs and we've removed the hard facts and the duty and the honor and the commitments, and we've replaced it all with this subjectiveness. And there's nothing more subjective than feelings. How I feel inside on a day I say I'm happy might be the exact same way someone feels inside on the day they say they're sad, because their expectation might be higher for happy because they only think they're happy when they're running around laughing like a child. Whereas I think I'm happy as long as I'm not distraught. I'm happy all the time because I've nothing to cry about. So what am I going to cry about?
The masculine fixation on emotion could be push for pharmaceuticals.
Oh, no, yeah. It's a push for pharmaceuticals. It's a push for feminization. It's a push for subjectivism. It's a push to remove duty and honor. It's an attack on masculinity. I don't really give a shit how the men I know feel because they have things they need to do. And as long as they're going to do them like they're supposed to do them, I don't really care that much. And if they were to come to me and say they feel down about something and they had a good reason, I wouldn't be insensitive. That's fine. But we're talking about a death of a family member or something. And we're talking about 1 or 2 days until you just get back to life. You have things to do. There are people in Gaza right now whose families are getting blown to smithereens. Are they sitting around doing therapy or are they rebuilding their homes? Action solves all things. Time solves all things. God solves all things. And to sit around and be obsessed with feelings is highly feminine. I don't like that energy around me. I don't even accept it from women. I don't even like when women sit around. I'm sad. Okay, that's fine, but I'm not, and there's things to do. And you're not going to bring your negative energy in this house. Either cheer up or get out. Don't sit here and talk about being sad over nothing. It's just infantile. It's what children do. I think this obsession with feelings in general is, once again, purported by the Matrix, and they're trying to convince everybody that if you feel a certain way, it's okay to act a certain way, when truthfully, it's not. If I feel angry, is it okay to go shoot up a school? No. Like, you're not allowed to act on your anger or act, especially as a man. Women do this all the time. Oh, but I was PMS. Or I had my period. So? You're an adult. You're an adult. You're not allowed to scream at people. You're an adult. Control yourself. If you can't control yourself because you feel a certain way, then you're not allowed an opinion on anything because you're still a fucking kid. You're still a child. For all the women who say they do certain things because of PMS, because they can't control themselves, even though they're a full-grown adult, why are you voting and having an opinion on anything? Because you're still a fucking child, right? I feel angry. I don't shoot anyone. I feel sad. I don't cry. Just get on with life. It's the adult mentality. So I'm not sure. Feelings don't cross my mind, if that makes sense. They don't cross my mind because they don't affect my day. So it doesn't change anything. So I have other things to think about.
Going back to your childhood, do you know what your GPA was in school?
I can't remember. I don't know. I got moved up 2 grades. I remember that. But then I asked to move back down because I didn't make friends as easily, and they moved me down 1 grade. So I was 1 grade ahead. But I was only in school in America till I was like 10. And then I went to school in England, which was a very different experience.
Did you and Tristan get in trouble a lot in school?
Nah.
Really?
Nah, we didn't get in trouble a lot. No, I think we were fairly good students. We weren't particularly popular. We weren't unpopular. We were kind of like a side group to the main groups of the school. We had our own thing going on. But we were American, and back then in England, being from America for some reason was a big deal. But school was fairly easy. I never tried that hard, but I always did well. I should have tried much harder, but even then, when I was young, I understood it was bullshit and a waste of time. So I got B's and A's, but I didn't try to get B's and A's. I just got B's and A's because I had half a brain, But I could have done.
Did you have a favorite subject in school?
I could have done fantastically and gone and done really amazingly academically, but I just knew it wasn't going to make me rich, and I wanted to be rich, so I just wasn't interested in it. My favorite thing in school, I don't even think I had a favorite subject. They were all just obligations I had to complete. So I just did them all. They were all obligations to do. They were all fairly easy to do, but I knew it wasn't going to give me what I wanted.
Once you guys got finished with your schoolwork, like what did you guys do? Like what was the activities?
Yeah, so
Were
I
you
had to
training?
play, my father was a professional chess player, so I had to play chess a lot when I was in America. And then when I moved to England, I started doing martial arts or even just fairly normal things. But even when I was only 15, 16, I was trying to find ways to make money. I started my first job when I was 15 years old, carrying boxes of fish. I used to carry boxes of ice. And I'm not sure why I've always been obsessed with money. I don't know if it's because I grew up poor, but a lot of poor people grew up and they didn't seem as obsessed as me. I've always been obsessed with the idea of having money. And I think that in the world today, if you truly actually want something and you never give up on it, you're definitely going to get it. But that's all I ever wanted. I wanted someone to just teach me how to make money. I remember even from the age of 15, going to school, or if I ever met anyone who was rich or whatever, I'd say, I don't want to learn a subject. I want money. And they're like, oh yeah, we got to go to school. No. I want to learn. Teach me how to make money. Don't teach me fucking English. I speak English. Teach me how to make money. And there seem to be all these obstacles in the way. You have to go to school and you have to get your grades, and then you get a job, or then you learn how to make money. And I couldn't find anyone to just teach me how to make money, which is, I guess, why I launched my school now that I currently have, because it teaches you how to make money, which is what it's for.
Why did you create your school? I mean, you said it's like, what age did you realize school was a scam? Did you know from the get-go?
I knew from the get-go that school was a scam. I've always known it. And I was actually talking about this 4 or 5 years ago. I was discussing with someone how university is a scam and how people go because there's nothing else to do. They just finish high school or college and they don't know what else to do, and they can't find a high-paying job, so they go to university just to waste time. And somebody agreed with me and said, yeah, but there's no alternative, and I decided to launch an alternative. So we now own university.com. It's the largest online educational platform on the planet. $49 a month. It's cheaper than pizza or a hamburger, and we teach people how to make money online.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of reasons why we're doing that. One of the primary reasons we're doing that also is because one of the ways the Matrix keeps everybody under control is what we were discussing earlier, gatekeepers. And one of the largest gatekeepers is your job. If you have to call all the transsexuals she's at your job, or the HR department will fire you, well, then they're doing very good and continuing to infiltrate the transgender movement amongst the minds of men in the world today. So I like the idea of any fan of mine being able to make his own money and being outside of the Matrix and not being fully controlled so he can feed his family. So I feel like it benefits my mission to teach people how to make money online. Also, it was a gap in the market because everybody's tired of the idea of traditional education, which teaches you absolutely nothing. And we're doing fantastically well. We have over 250,000 students. It's $49 a month. We teach people how to make money. And we're starting to launch our own initiatives now. We've just launched fundraiser.com. So I've taken $50 million of my own money. And now anybody who is a member of the real world who has a business plan can apply for funding. So I'm going to own a percentage of all these other companies. The Matrix-led educational institutions were very unhappy with me getting university.com and buying that. That pissed them off, which was fun. So everything's going online anyway. Most things are moving online, and this is a revolution in the educational space. And I think it's also one of the reasons why I was attacked so heavily, because the educational mafias and the loans attached to them have huge political sway. It's probably one of the reasons why they're so mad at me. But it teaches young men how to get rich. And young men who are rich are harder to control. And as you said earlier, money often comes with other attributes. If you're good at making money, you've learned how to work hard and be dedicated and explain yourself to other people and have your own opinion and think outside the box. And if I can teach hundreds of thousands of young men how to get rich and not need a job, all the other skills they're going to learn along the way is going to make them difficult to control as people. They're going to be the kind of people who resist the matrix. So it all ties in together, and everyone benefits, right?
I've gone through the real world, Andrew, and I think it's extremely useful. I think a common critique with courses and these kind of online programs is that you can find the information elsewhere online. Yeah. But I think it's useful because of the amalgamation of the information and the actual path it shows you to take to make the money. And then the community aspect of people actually, like, I made X amount, and you can meet someone who's already made the money, doing the business you want to do, talk with him, like learn the updated things. I don't know. I mean, sure, the information's available online, but you don't know where to look for each thing. You don't know how they connect.
Absolutely. We've laid it all out for you, right? So it's like saying, well, why would you buy a dictionary when all the words are available online? Well, in a dictionary, they're in order.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot easier to digest. And then there's the community aspect, of course, and the fact we're always updating it and adding to the platform. We update the platform at 8 a.m. every day. There's no other school in the world that updates itself every day. If you go to a college, you're learning the same things.
It's a decade old.
Yes, it's 10 years old. They don't update their textbooks every day. They don't update their information every day.
And you can't post everything online, like on YouTube. Like, I mean, in the real world, for instance, I went through the AI course, and it showed me something about like prompt engineering. And I was like, okay, you probably won't find this on Reddit. You know, like they could actually put this so you could prompt it in a way to get X result, you know, but they can't say that.
Exactly.
There's some interesting things.
Oh, no, there's super interesting things. And the most important thing is that we've made it $49 a month. So it's super affordable for anybody.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very proud of the school we've built, and we've just begun. We're going to launch the real world token soon. So everybody who's inside of the real world can increase their power level by making money. And there's going to be an airdrop that allows everybody to get the token. So it's quite a revolutionary thing we've done. You join for $49, you learn how to make money. As you make money, which is more than you've invested, you increase your power level, and then you're going to get free crypto coins based on your power level. So we are genuinely making people rich. We are improving the world, and that good karma of making hundreds of thousands of people rich, I feel like is a massive shield against the evil and the Satanists who are trying their very best to destroy the world and put me in jail. So my primary objective every single day, all day, every day, is to make the real world as powerful as possible and make people as much money as possible. And once they have money and they realize that money is not alone, money alone is not enough. You need brotherhood and network. Then they can join the war room. So,
in the real world, you help people learn really practical methods of making money to get big results. What are the most practical, spiritual, and energetic beliefs you have?
Well, I don't want to be cliche. People talk about manifestation, right? Manifestation is real, but not because your mind manages to magically attract the things you want. I don't believe it.
Your results reflect your thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. I think it just reminds you of what you really want, and it allows you to find energy all the time. If you manifest yourself having a perfect physique, you're going to be a lot more motivated in the gym. It's not the thought that makes the physique, it's the gym that makes the physique. However, the manifestation makes you want to go to the gym. So I do believe that if you understood the power of your thoughts, you'd never think negatively ever again. But I think manifestation works in another way. I also think that once you understand all of the bad things and good things that come into your life are a perfect plan from God himself, you're going to be a lot less affected by the bad things. If something bad happens to you, it's part of God's plan. He knows what he's doing. In the end, you're going to be happy it happened. I often ask people, is there anything bad that's happened to you in the past at the time you were distraught about that you now wish didn't even happen? And truthfully, you're like, no, I'm kind of glad it all happened because of. So if you understand you're always going to get there eventually, why be upset about it now, right? If you know in a year from now you'll be glad it happened, why be upset about it happening now? You have to be cerebral enough about things. And I think if you take these approaches, if you take the approach of manifesting what you want so you're constantly motivated and understanding all the bad things that happen to you are just a lesson and one day you're going to get over it, it's pretty easy to be a happy, contented, balanced person. I don't think there's any serious magic to happiness. I think it's a choice and it's pretty easy to do. I think the unhappiest people in the world don't have any struggle at all. You often find that people who are struggling but know exactly what they're supposed to do, if they're getting up every day and they're grinding and they're working hard and they don't have what they want yet, but they believe they're going to get it and they're trying their very best and they're dedicating themselves, they're very happy. Perhaps the people who are born with a trust fund and unlimited money and have no struggles in their life and they have no objectives to try and conquer are truly the miserable ones. Perhaps we're built for struggle. Perhaps the human mind and soul and spirit is built to struggle. Perhaps we're built to suffer. I know me as a man, I'm happiest when I suffer. Why did the emperors we discussed earlier constantly try and expand their empires? Because they wanted struggle. Yeah. They wanted difficulty. Would you play a video game if it was easy? If you could never die? I mean, cheats get boring pretty quick. You play it because it's hard. That's the whole point of it. You're supposed to struggle with it. You're supposed to suffer with it. So I think a lot of people confuse these things and they sit and say, this is merely making me unhappy. Or people ask me about my current legal troubles. Is it making you unhappy? It must be really stressful. I said, yeah, perhaps. But if I didn't have it, perhaps I'd be worse. You know, if I woke up and everything was just perfect, that'd be great for a few weeks. But if you just wake up and nothing ever goes wrong, I think that'd be quite depressing in its own way. That's the beauty of life, is the up and the down, because there's no light without dark. So if you understand these things, it's pretty easy to be happy.
Yeah, I guess on manifestation, is there anything that you don't teach people because it's too strange? Like, are there any unusual manifestation tactics you've used in the past decade, like speaking to moon water or collecting crystals, something weird? Is there anything that you've tried?
It's a good question. I think I don't do anything that's crazy. If I say something, I stick to it. I believe that your word is your bond and you should stick to everything you say. So for me, the simplest life hack is to make sure I never see myself as a liar. If I say something, I'm going to do it. So if I say I'm going to run a marathon, I now have the energy to run the marathon because I don't want to break my word to myself. Which the hack to that is I don't need the energy to run the marathon. I need the energy to say I'll run a marathon, which is a lot less. But once I've said it, I have to do it. Does that make sense? So if I look at something and I don't want to do it and I think that looks too hard to do, I'll tell Tristan or I'll tell someone close to me I'm going to do it. So now I have to do it. That's how I'll do things. So we can take a very simple example. There's 10 rocks to move and I don't want to move them. They're too heavy. But if I say to someone, I can move all those rocks, I'm going to move all those rocks. Now I have to move them. Otherwise I'm a liar. Especially, and that's also easy because of my social circle, because they'll call me out on it. You said you were going to move those rocks. So now I have to do it. So I don't need the energy to get the work done. I need the energy to tell people I'm going to do the work, and I have to keep my word to myself, which maybe some people find strange, but I think it's a pretty simple.
You have to build trust with yourself. Yeah, once you trust yourself, you can do the things you say you're going to do.
Absolutely. You have to be the kind of person who doesn't lie to anybody, including yourself, especially yourself. Don't lie to yourself ever. You have to be brutally honest with yourself all the time. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make the correct move on the chessboard. If you think you're better than you are or worse than you are, you're going to make mistakes. You need to know exactly where you are and all of your capabilities, which once again is feedback, like we said before.